Thursday, February 26, 2015. Time is 6 o'clock. Roll call, Jackie, please.
President Riley.
Here.
Vice President Lloyd.
Here.
Commissioner Egan.
Present.
Commissioner Heidi.
Here.
Commissioner Janner.
Here.
Commissioner Todd. Here. Commissioner Young. Here.
Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No.
Under new business, we have 12 items.
Move to approve resolution 15-01, authorizing the Naperville Park District's application for a ComEd Green Region Grant for 2015-16, improvements at Mock Knoll Park.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion?
Just for the record, state what that grant is going to, if granted, will provide.
There are two parts to it. The first is a woodland restoration along the behavioral trail, which runs through Naperville Park. And the second is phase 2 of the utility signage extending across the river at Naperville.
Discussion on the motion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Vice President Lloyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes.
Commissioner Egan.
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi.
Yes.
Commissioner Janner.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
President Riley.
Yes. Next, we have approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the February 12, 2015 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Vice President Lloyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Todd.
Yes.
Commissioner Egan.
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi.
Yes.
Commissioner Janner.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
President Riley.
Yes. Next, we have new business, and our first item under discussion items is Sandy Moore from WDSRA. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming all the way out here on this cold evening.
Yeah. At least there was no snow coming down this time. So, well, thank you for letting me come today. This is my annual visit to the Naperville Park District. And what I've done with all of my visits this year is to kind of explain how exactly do we deliver services for the residents of Naperville as well as our 8 other communities. So I thought I would share a little bit of how recreation is delivered because I think it's a little bit different than what the Park District does. So, of course, the first thing we like to do is pride ourselves on world-class services with the mission of the development of individuals through recreation. And our vision is equal fun for everyone, which states basically that people who have disabilities should have the same opportunities as anyone else who doesn't have a disability. So that's kind of what the vision is there. So here's the recreation team. We have 16 full-time staff that deliver recreation services for our 9 communities that we serve. And we offer, as you can see, 32 weeks of programs with about 1,200 recreation programs being offered per year. When we're out of the program season, we offer camps, special events, tournaments, and trips. And our delivery is a little bit different when it comes to programming. At WDSRA, we offer the same class that the Park District might offer, but our priority is finding the staff member who has the skill set to work with the population. And then our full-time staff are planning the activity and handing it over along with all of the supplies and purchases needed for that program. So a little bit different. You know, you're used to contracting out with employees and they run the whole show. And if they have a good reputation, you're good to go. They run Zumba, they do whatever. And it's a little bit different with us. So we're looking for the staff who can be the head instructor that has the skill set for the population that we're serving. And then our full-time staff, who are degreed in therapeutic recreation and a zillion other degrees, which we'll share with you tonight, are the folks who are actually planning. So we're saying, hey, Omar, thanks for working for us, and here's your lesson plan for the program, and here's all the supplies you need, and your roster and all the things you need. So it's a little bit different in how we deliver services. The fall interim season that we offer was added when parents told us that that break was too long, you know, between fall and winter. They needed something in between. And so we offer that program, or that season of program is bowling and special events and then swimming. So those are real. If you ever want to start a special rec association, it's swimming and bowling. Those are the two top things, and then social club is a near third. So those are the priorities. But we divide our team, and so you've got our athletics team on the top. Those three at the top are the folks that deliver athletics. You have a manager and 2 supervisors, and boy, did they deliver a lot of athletics, a lot of programming, a lot of Special Olympic teams, etc., as well as our adaptive sports program, which we'll tell you a little bit more about. This bottom team is called the cassette team. It's kind of interesting. That's the name they came up with. It's cultural, special events, camps, athletics, and social activities. So that's what those guys do. This is our support services. Am I needing to, there we go. There we go. Support services is right now Wendy, and then we just hired another woman who's working with her, Becca, and they do all the hiring of all of the part-time staff that are needed for our programs. And then we have quite a contingent of volunteers. And while we do use volunteers to assist us in programs, and that certainly helps us save money, due to the elevated level of care of the people we serve, the volunteers are typically not in huge numbers. But where we do see the huge numbers are when, thank you, when we have a group like Comcast Cares and they decide to pick our place and we've got 75 people showing up to work on a project or an event or something like that. And then we have a big volunteer contingent coming in and staff to assist them. So support services, and they hire about 325 people a year, and probably about 150 volunteers would be a typical thing in programming. Our next person is Dana, and she does fine arts and facilities. Oops, that's back there. One more back.
One more bit?
Yep. Dana's in the middle. She does all our fine arts and facilities. She's an art therapist on staff, so that's a kind of an interesting skill set. Not every special rec has those, but we do. And she provides both individual and group art therapy lessons, so it's kind of interesting. She created a small space in our office that she's calling our art studio, and people actually come for one-on-one lessons. It's a great opportunity for us when we have someone who doesn't fit perfectly in other programs, or their behavior is so significant that we can't put them in another program. But one-on-one, they can work effectively, or sometimes it's actually two-on-one, 2 staff to 1 child, depending upon behaviors. So that kind of facility allows us to do that. And then Dana has the wonderful opportunity to secure all the facilities at all 9 districts that we need. That's quite the challenge. And then our last person down here is Dory. She heads up all of our day programs. And in the last 8 years, those programs have just blossomed. So basically what they are is on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, if you have graduated high school and you are under the age of 55, somewhere between 22 or 21 and 55, you can come do a day program with us. You might know the one we hold at Sportsman's. We have 4 sites, and then we opened a new site in Carroll Stream, which is for lower functioning people. So most of the folks in the program are a 1-to-6 ratio. They go for 50 weeks out of the year, and that is quite an expensive program. They pay $25 a day to come to that program, and we have over 120 participants that are in those activities. So we look forward to the new activity center, which will allow us to add another rec and roll program, which is what we call it. And the huge need is truly when folks get out of school and they have special needs, if they're lucky to get a job, it might be a couple days a week. And so they got a lot of time on their hands. And parents don't want them sitting around, thank goodness. And so that we can fill that niche for them. And so it's a really great program. They go out in the community and do a lot of things. It's not just, and they volunteer, which is awesome. In fact, they set up the tables for RibFest, just to give you an idea. They're part of the volunteers at RibFest and come and set up the tables before the event starts. So it's, it's a great thing. Next is our credentials. So I just thought I'd show you what folks at our office hold. All of them with bachelor's, if not higher degrees. So many of them are therapeutic rec specialists. It's called a CTRS. It is an exam you have to sit for, and then you have to pass the exam and then maintain it through CEUs. So, and they're CEUs that are tied to therapeutic-based things. You can't just go to management and count that. It has to be more therapeutic-based and more special needs-based. Obviously, we have many staff who are CPRPs, as I'm sure you do here. And then we have a staff member who has a master's in therapeutic rec. We've got Amy with a master's in art therapy, or Dana, music therapy is Amy. And then we always sprinkle in a few folks that have come our way through special ed. We've got someone right now with a kinesiology degree, psychology, and human family resources. Of the 16, we've got 173 years in the field and 103 years at WD. Now, you always want to keep staff, but when you're in special rec, you really want to keep staff. And the reason is because you never want families to have to tell their story one more time. You want to be able to have a family come to a program, recognize the staff, see them, know that the plans were created by someone who knows their child or their adult with special needs, etc. So it is a very important thing and something that gives credibility to our agency if we can maintain. So I thought I'd let you know a little bit about programming. This past year, Naperville Park District residents made up 31%. Slide that little chart. Well, when I slid it, it was down there. Let me tell you what it said. It said there were... Can you do anything about that? Probably not, huh? Isn't that interesting? Let me just try and click again to see if it... No, it doesn't go back. Okay. Well, it was supposed to come in at the bottom, and it did on my computer. But anyway, let me tell you what it said.
If you take it out of the slideshow mode and you just put it on the slide, you should be able to see it, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have IT folks, right? There we go. Okay. So 31% of WDSRA programs. 31% of WDSRA programs, so those are the ones that we offer, were made up of Naperville Park District residents, and that was 2,758 registrations, just to give you a sense of what your people are participating in. And then 29%, or 544, were inclusion programs that were registered for. So you can see it's a nice mix, which is great. And then you can see the comparison to last year. So you went up a little bit, from 30 to 31% and 26 to 29%. Yes?
Sandy, when you say 2758 registration, is that individuals?
It is not unique individuals. Okay. It is, if I sign up for 4 programs, it's counting the 4. Okay. It's registrations.
Do you know how many?
I will look in my file. I think I have that with me. Okay. And let you know individuals as well. Okay? Yeah, we should be good now. Actually, I don't have Naperville, but I have 2,993 unique individuals with disabilities were served through us, and I'll look and see if my Naperville count is there. While we're talking about programs, I just want to tell you how appreciative we are of the opportunity to hold our drop-in center at the Riverwalk Community Center for individuals who have mental health issues. That is every Wednesday evening of the year. So we have church groups that come and prepare a meal and feed our folks, and we have upwards of 35 to 50 folks, depending upon who decides to come and what the weather's like and who can get there, etc. It is drop-in, so we're never quite sure how many are coming, so it's always unique to serve. And these are folks who have almost dual diagnosis, so mental health as well as some other developmental issues going on. Great group of people who really appreciate the service and desperately need a place to connect in the community. And drop-in allows us to do that. And we don't take it lightly that we're in your facility that often. That is significant. It's almost 50 weeks out of the year. So we love the paddle boats and access to the Centennial Beach. Our Santa House served, or your Santa House, excuse me, served 362 families with special needs this year. And I love that time. I still have not made it down. I'm definitely going next year, but I love the stories. When the staff come back and tell the stories from Santa House, they're just so heartwarming. You know, kids with disabilities oftentimes cannot go see the regular Santa at the mall. There's too much going on. They can't wait in line. That's the critical thing. And the Park District being so willing to set aside some special time for people where they can make an appointment and come is what makes it successful. And we've had parents who have been in tears in the parking lot as we've walked them out because it's the first time their child actually got to sit down on Santa's lap. And your Santa, I know there's a lot of mixed reviews, but from our viewpoint, he asks questions before the kid walks in, and he knows what their special needs are. He knows whether to touch them, whether not to touch them. If they have sensory issues, he is from heaven. Families just love him. So I want to thank you for that. We,
I played Santa before, so that definitely.
we offer summer camps as cooperatives with school districts 203 and 204. So the kids go to summer school, and then we come in and run camp for the rest of the day. And then I just want to tell you that, we serve 9 districts, and everybody's a little bit different, and every district has a little bit of a different personality. And we do our absolute best to kind of go with the flow with each of the districts. But you have just got dynamite staff at Naperville. They are easy to work with, and we've dealt with some difficult issues. They're easy to work with, always open, always willing to ask questions, always willing, and not to jump to conclusions, but to ask. And then probably more importantly is we definitely feel a part of the Naperville Park District. I don't have to worry if there's something on the website. It's just we truly do feel a part of this place, and that is really nice to say. Because that's not true for all the districts, I have to tell you. Some of them we have to work harder at. So this one is great, and we really appreciate the relationships that we have, from publicity all the way down to maintenance, as well as your recreation facilities. Of course, we always would love to have more here. That's always a challenge, but we're just pleased to work with the staff here. They're just talented folks. And believe me, we've dealt with some problems, so. Okay, well, there's the chart. Interesting. All right. As Ray always said, don't do all that extra stuff. It was one chart moving in, Ray. I thought we could handle it, I tell you. Okay, so unique individuals by age group. This is always important for us to look at because we want to know who we're serving. And if we're not serving a certain age group, then find out, are they being served in another way? Because that's our job, is to serve everybody. So you can see by percentage, our largest percentage is 23 to 99-year-olds. So that's interesting, because some SRAs, it's all kids. So we have a nice mix. And this is both inclusion as well as special rec merged together. It's just whatever services. Pardon?
Why no 100-year-olds?
I don't know if we haven't gotten there yet, I guess.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. I'll be able to show you that. So we always look at that, and we're always interested in what we're doing. And we're going to do a needs assessment. So we're going to focus on, hey, are we meeting the needs of the folks out there? And if we've got an age group that isn't being served by us, and maybe isn't being served so much by inclusion, well, what are they doing? We know a lot of families we see only in the summer, and we don't see year-round. And when we surveyed them recently, what do you think the number one reason was we don't see them year-round? Their kids are in therapy. They're going to doctor's appointments. It's all like speech, OT, PT, ABA for kids on the autism spectrum. They can't fit it all in. And so they appreciate in the summer, and they certainly need that, and that's a big period of time. But that's the number one reason why we don't see some of the kids. And then when you get older, you have less of those therapies, so then you can be in programming. Well, we have an inclusion team that coordinates services and determines individual support needs and trains staff. Tammy heads up that group, and I will tell you our biggest user group is ages 3 to 12, so the park districts very well meet the needs of folks who want to be in the regular program and then just have support.
Could you just define what the inclusion means?
Sure. So inclusion would be when someone with special needs doesn't sign up for the segregated programs offered in our brochure, so they're recreating with like people. They are choosing to sign up for a park district program. Might be other programs, but then we wouldn't provide support, only to the park district programs. And so then they need support. And it could be everything from a one-on-one aid to creating a behavior plan. It could be enhancing the training of your staff that just need a little bit more information so that they can deliver services in a little bit different way. We always try and do the least expensive, so that would not be a one-on-one staff, but oftentimes it ends up being a staff situation. Accommodations include observations and evaluations. Sometimes we'll just get a call from the park district saying, hey, we've got somebody in preschool we're having some concerns about, could you come down and observe? And we just do an observation with permission from the family, and take a look at could we, first of all, is there a special need that we're identifying, or could we do something to support the staff to help that child be more successful? And it's also all the way through up to adults as well. If an adult signs up and needs support, we're there as well. It's activity modification, it's disability awareness training, it's behavior management, it's sometimes sign language interpreters, adaptive equipment, support staff. So I thought I would show you the low-tech approach to managing behavior. Some of the park districts have found this funny and decided that I could make them tags for how they run their meetings and whether someone talks too much or not. But let me give you an idea. So this child has a particular issue with hitting and pulling. He takes his clothes off, shirt mostly, thank goodness, and he likes to break things when he's upset, and he'll occasionally spit. So those are challenging behaviors sometimes. So those are all listed here. And so what they usually do is when he comes to the program, they'll tell him a story, which is all typed out, and it's a story about what is appropriate behavior. And when you want to do this, this is your alternative. And so what we do is, this is called a PEC system, and we got a zillion of these plastic laminated things with Velcro. We have little drawers, like thousands. In fact, someone decided to merge them all one time. I'm not quite sure why. And we had to all take them home and spend hours just at night going, okay, that's toilet, that's clothes, that's, and put them back in individual ones. So it was interesting. So this is remember what you're supposed to do, and they go through it. So as they arrive, they tell them. And then if they don't do it, it moves to strike one. So you pull it off, like you don't want to pull, no pulling. Strike one. Okay? Then they get to strike two. That one can move over, or they can have another one. 3, you're going home. Now that's an agreement with the family. We're monitoring and managing a difficult behavior, etc. But this is what we do to help one child be successful. So this is the low-tech approach. I'll just pass it around so you can see how low-tech it is. Very effective. But the other thing is we have iPads as well. And the iPads were used this last summer, and we saw no human bites. So sometimes our staff will get bit. That's a typical thing for us. Maybe up to 11 times in the summer we'll send staff for medical treatment. And we've done the training, we've done everything. But if you don't anticipate and you've got a challenging kid, you can just turn the corner and boom, they got you. And so what we did is we used the iPads to communicate with them. This is what we're doing next. This is the order of things today. So if you know someone's anxious and they don't have language to be able to tell you that they're anxious about something, sometimes using an iPad and letting them know what's next, and you have to do this before you get your snack, etc., just calms them a little bit. And then they also use the iPad this way. We're going to go this way, and the kid likes the iPad and they're coming. So we laughed and said that's really a high-low-tech approach to getting someone to go somewhere. But we always track our incidents and saw a dramatic change. Such a dramatic change that Paderma, the risk pool, let us have a grant for sensory toys because we were using the iPads in conjunction with sensory toys. So if you see someone getting agitated and anticipate that this is going to cause some agitation, or all you got to do is change a room on us. If they got to go to a different room and you all think, oh, that's no big deal, WD can go there, the change in the room can make a behavior come out. And so if we can anticipate that, and our staff are good enough to do that, they can give a sensory toy, something that's calming, something that they can, like goop or a ball, or, we got a bunch of zillions of things. And so Paderma gave us a grant to go get more because they saw how we were using it, and we actually showed that it was being effective. So, again, very different than what the Park District does, although I'm sure in your preschool programs you've got some behavior management things you're doing as well. But that's a typical way that we help kids be successful in programs. So just wanted to kind of give you an update on that. We are always appreciative that Naperville has all their inclusion go through one person. That's like a portal. And I think that person is, I have Judy, but Janine?
Janine's taking it over.
Yeah, Janine's taking it over. Just awesome. We don't have that with all of our districts. We would love for everyone to just pick one person, but it doesn't always work that way. And so we appreciate that, certainly from such a large district. Inclusion support staff costs were just under $300,000 for all 9 districts last year, just to give you a sense. So people's needs are being met. And, you know, I used to think that inclusion was, okay, well, we're not offering what they need, and that's why they're going to the park district. But what we've seen is that people go with what they have in school. So if they're in an integrated or an inclusive environment, which most kids are in Naperville, they want an inclusive environment for their recreation as well. Why would they change? But as they get older and the ability levels change and it becomes more apparent, then we see them come to the segregated programming. Yes?
Cindy, are most of the inclusion, I'll call it attempts, are they mostly successful, or?
Yes. Yes. I would say we have a really high success rate. And one of the things one of the reasons why I think we're successful is because our staff are really good at matching the right people with the right person. And more so than I've ever seen I've worked at 3 SRAs now. These guys are really talented at that. Sometimes the park district staff get upset with us because we ask for 2 weeks, and that's not always convenient, especially if the park district person has sat on the request and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I got to get this to them, and we're a week in already, and then if 2 more weeks are added, it's hard for parents to wait. But making that match is in a very strategic way can help with the success of the person. So I'd say for the most part, we don't kick too many people out. It occasionally happens, but not too often. Okay, the last one I wanted to share with you is outreach. This is a new position over the last year. Dale has stepped in. She was on staff. She's bilingual, which is helpful with more than one of our communities. But her job is to go out and identify people who need our services. So a little bit different than what the park district. You know, you do your wide net approach, you do your blast, you do your brochure, you do all the social media, and then you get a brochure in everybody's home, etc. Well, obviously with special rec you can't do that. You can't get a brochure in everybody's home in 9 communities. That would be not affordable. So she develops relationships. So the first thing I said to Dale is, you know what, I need you to go and find out how special ed is delivered in all of the districts. And then come back and share that with us so we have a solid understanding of how kids get moved and where they get served. And in doing so, she made unbelievable connections with special ed co-ops, with school professionals, with social workers, and it really has helped us to launch a variety of things. We have 14 school districts and 3 special ed co-ops that are served within the 9 communities. So again, lots of different personalities and ways to deliver services. She reached 175 new families her first year with this approach. So we're excited about it. So what does it take for someone to be successful? I won't read it. I'll just let you look at it real briefly. That's a lot different than what a park district has to do, but this is what we do to help people be successful. Okay. Current year, just wanted to share some highlights with you. Things we're excited about: the 12 iPad, increased communication and decreased behavior issues. WD offered 1 new rec and roll program. Windy City Warriors, this is our adaptive sports team. So if you're in high school and you want to play sports and you've got a physical disability, probably not going to make the high school team. You're going to make the WD Warriors team. And that team competes all over the state and has had actual national success as well. So you can see they took 3rd at nationals. I talked to you about the art studio, Special Olympic Young Athletes, our program. We offered for 3 to 5-year-olds, brand new program that we offered, went in and served over 250 kids in that program and worked on gross motor skills and balance, those kinds of things that really young kids need.
Sandy, do you have enough iPads, or do you need more, or was that just kind of the test?
We are up to 14, and we are good because keeping them up to date, monitoring them, keeping them clean, keeping them secure, it's all a system, and it's working, but I think we're good with what we have. Thank you for asking. And then we ran a Lose to Live program that actually received a state award this year. What we did is kind of off of the Lose to Live or the Biggest Loser program. We wanted, so many folks with developmental disabilities are obese. And so we asked families to get involved, and they did. And it was a grant-based program, and so it's not continuing, but it was a great way to kind of kick off good, healthy habits and change behaviors. And I want to say they lost 67 pounds or something, so did pretty well. And the kid who won actually was from Naperville and lost a significant amount of body weight, or body fat, which was awesome. Oh, Terry down here, I just wanted to thank you. Terry Gregory is our community relations person, and we have housed her at the Naperville Park District for almost 2 years now. That has made a significant difference. She's here 1 day a week. She works 3 days, and that has made a significant difference. A business card with a Naperville address makes a difference at the Chamber of Commerce, makes a difference in Naperville. It was a very, very positive thing for us to do, and I appreciate that Ray could find some space for her and was willing to have her kind of join your staff and be in your environment. What's on the horizon? We have a brand new collaborative adaptive sports program called Synergy. Took us a year to get it off the ground. We merged our program with Northeast DuPage Special Rec Association. We have one program. So if you're 4 years old and you get in a chair, you can go all the way to a college scholarship if you want to play a sport with us. So you can see from start to finish what that road is. It's pretty exciting. Needs assessment, we're doing that right now to be conducted this year. Continue to grow the Foundation Board of Trustees. We've had some great success with our Board of Trustees in building that. And we're building it with folks that are connected, not warm hearts, people who are connected in the community. So we're always looking for new people. We've got like a hit list, and we go after them every so often. So please let us know if you have anyone that you think, one, has a heart, but two, also has the connections that would assist us in raising dollars. We're launching a brand new play-based program. That one's going to be on me. At least the speech is on Saturday at our auction. That's going to be our Raise the Paddle, and we're going to house that program the first year in Naperville. It's called Lekotech, L-E-K-O-T-E-K. We'll tell you more about it as we get it off the ground. It's a program that I had 23 years of experience with before, and it is a wonderful play-based program where kids come with their siblings and their moms and dads. They play for an hour with toys that are specifically designed for that child, and then they take those toys home just like you do library books. And you continue the play strategies to help the child develop, and then you bring them back and you come back for a play session the next month and change out the toys and do it all over again. It's a really kind of fun and exciting thing. Huge in Oak Park, huge in Evanston, and Naperville has a lot of the same very educated people who understand the importance of play. So I think this is the ideal place to start, and that's where we're going to start it. Increased services to individuals with mental illness. That's something that's on our horizon with the new, at the health department, the DuPage County Health Department, they're building a community center through NAMI, which is for mental illness, and National Alliance for folks with mental illness, and we'll be working collaboratively with them. And then we're continuing to fundraise for phase 2 of the Sensory Garden and Playground, which we're building with a lot of support from outside. And then last, I just want to thank you for believing that our residents with disabilities have a right to live rich lives filled with wonderful recreation opportunities and friendships. It is your ongoing support that allows us to continue to serve Naperville, and we thank you for that. And that's all I have. Any questions? Other than Mike's, and I'll get my unique number to you. I'll throw it in an email to Ray if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. I should have had that with me. I don't know why I didn't bring it. So, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The next item we have under discussion item is Riverwalk Eatery, and since we have been joined by a couple of members of the public, if anyone from the public wants to address the board prior to an agenda item, you take up to 3 minutes. So Anyone would like to speak? First item is the Riverwalk Eatery. Yeah, no. Okay. You have 3 minutes. Jackie runs the timer.
Hi, I'm Ashley Pennick. I live at 1421 Sequoia Road, Naperville, 60540. I know that the Riverwalk Eatery was originally operated by Bill Joes, and I know that for the last year or so that has no longer been the case. I was present at the Liquor Commission meeting when they had decided to pass the mayor's liquor commissioner, and as well as the members, to progress to the Riverwalk Eatery. I think people who were portrayed in the media, there were several people who were there, and they expressed their concerns concerning the Riverwalk Eatery, and they were against it for things such as, well, we're going to have families there in the Riverwalk, and there's going to be alcohol, and there's going to be disruptions. I think that is a way of looking at it, but that's not my take on it. I'm looking at it more from an economic standpoint. I know that it has been proposed that around $400,000 it would take to open the patio for the eatery, and I don't think that you would be getting the return on investment. Also, you have to look at that everyone would be Bassett certified. That's another $35, $40. I don't know how it was when I took it. It was $35. The price may have increased since then. You also have to have certification of all of the servers and bartenders and managers who would be there. Health sanitation wise, as far as cleanliness, that is another added fee. That was actually just changed as of July of last year, whereas before it was just you have to have a manager on site at all times. You have to have a health sanitation license. I also feel that you wouldn't get necessarily enough people to apply for the position, because if you're looking at just serving beer and wine at that place, they may make only $40 or $50 a day, which to me would not be enough of an incentive to want to stay and work. You know, at Centennial Beach, you have eatery there, and we don't have alcohol served there either. And you know, I don't think it's wise there. Why we think it's wise for that to be done at the Riverwalk at the eatery, I don't think necessarily that would be wise to have alcohol there either. My background is in restaurants. I've been in the restaurant industry for 13 years, and I've been a bartender, and I've been a manager, and I've been doing that for a long time. And if I were 22, 23 years old, and I've been serving beer or wine to people, and I'm only making $30 a night, well, I'd be like, well, what the heck is up with that? I don't want to stay there anymore. I'm just going to leave and go somewhere else and get a better job. So that's where I'm saying it, just from that perspective. You're not going to get a return on investment for $400,000, and that's all I have to say. So, thank you.
I know, before you start, Rich, you have to... Okay.
So one of the items that is on the agenda tonight, we wanted to provide an update and have some discussion concerning one of the district's organizational goals for this year, which is making improvements to the Riverwalk Eatery. And just a little background on the Eatery project. The idea, or the renovations to the Riverwalk Eatery, that's been part of the district's capital plan, 10-year capital plan for many years. Discussions regarding beginning the movement forward with making renovations to the eatery and doing improvements first began in late 2013. Shortly after that, staff began working towards bringing in a consulting firm that had experience working with restaurants, working with bars, to come in and provide the Park District with 3 concepts. Concepts that would include what the plans would be for those renovations, proposed menus, as well as financial projections for the facility. Last February, the board approved a contract with Creative Hospitality Associates. We began working with them shortly after that and throughout the spring and summer. And ultimately, 3 concepts were presented in August. Although the CHA concepts were not fully implemented, funding was identified in the 2015 capital budget for improvements to the eatery. The project was also identified as one of the initiatives that the district would be undertaking as we went forward with the budget presentation last November. Over the past several months, staff has continued to work towards the completion of the project, including the development of renovation designs with an architectural team, discussing proposed renovations and improvements with the Naperville Riverwalk Commission, their Planning and Development Committee, with members of the Millennium Carillon Foundation. We've developed a proposed menu and submitted an application to the Naperville Liquor Commission for their consideration. Most recently at the January 22nd board meeting, there was consensus at that time among the board that making improvements to the eatery was one of the district's organizational goals for 2015. Last week, the board was provided with draft projections, some operating assumptions, as well as financial projections for the eatery operation, in addition to some renderings, some building elevations of what the facility would look like after the improvements were made. Those projections were developed through use of several means. First, using data from the National Restaurant Association and the information that they put out for like size and like type restaurants throughout the nation. We used basically median data information to develop revenue projections as well as expense projections. We also looked at our current food and beverage operations that we have at Centennial Grill and the golf courses and implemented those into the overall financial projections. We also tried to take into account weather impacts, and we made some assumptions around weather impacts because we are talking about a patio area that would be tied to the eatery. And we know that weather impacts anything that has a primary function outdoors. So we made some assumptions during the peak season, which would be between Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend, the 7-day-a-week operation, and then during the non-peak season, which would be your months of September through May, where we would be looking at limited hours, basically Friday evenings, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Can I interject something for a
Go
second
ahead.
here? I think there may be some confusion that there is in the public. That's my fault. This building has not been touched since 1985, since we built it. And the charge of this community has always been to take care of what you have. The vast majority of the $400,000 is not to build a restaurant. It's to upgrade ADA issues. It's to bring things up to code compliance. So the menu is a secondary issue. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, it's like replacing a $150,000 playground. We were forced during the capital plan, or the 10-year capital plan, to fix the building. The discussions we had with all of you was this building is so underutilized currently. It's an opportunity to bring a great amenity to the Riverwalk. Beer and wine, as I said publicly, if the city council decides not to approve a liquor license, I'm going to sleep okay that night. I'm not losing any sleep over that. The patio that we're putting in, to me, a pet-friendly area to go as you're walking down the Riverwalk, makes perfect sense. And if you want to drink coffee out there, drink coffee, and if we don't sell alcohol, so be it. It was nothing more than a matter of talking with people in the community and saying, wouldn't it be nice to be able to sit and listen to the Carillon concerts, or just sit as a legal adult with my dog, or with my spouse, or with myself, because if you look at the intent of the Riverwalk, it's right on there on the city website, to sit and reflect and engage your senses, basically, which is our tagline. So, you know, I think this has all gotten so wrapped up into beer and wine in the Riverwalk. And to Stephanie's point, you're absolutely correct. There were a few people at the Liquor Commission that, quite frankly, I was offended by.
It's Ashley.
Ashley, that I was offended by the fact that people were going to go from a seat on our patio and launch themselves into a quarry. That's ridiculous. Because if that's the case, then I'm going to call the JCs tomorrow and explain to them we probably should not be serving alcohol at Rotary Hill during the last flame. I was a police officer 20 years in this community. Not one person ever ended up in the quarry. And I thought that was a cheap shot based on the tragedy we had this past summer, or, last summer. So I just wanted to get that out, that, the crux of what we're doing here is like any other capital plan. As far as the menu, whether we serve a panini or whether we serve a schmear, as Brad calls it, that's just, it's a menu. The beer and wine was an afterthought, as far as it would be kind of nice to sit on a summer evening and responsibly have a glass of beer and just look, talk, whatever. So I wanted to make sure, before Greg got too much of the pro forma, that was at least out there as to why we were at where we're at today.
As I was saying, the revenue information that was utilized, we certainly took data from the National Restaurant Association for like type facilities, applied it to this situation, and then took into account weather impacts. The revenue projections are based on a per seat. We're projecting 94 seats, 34 of those seats being indoors at the eatery, 60 of those seats being outdoors on the patio. Overall, with counting in the weather, taking a look at times when we would be closed, the anticipated revenues from the food sales as well as any beer and wine sales, looking at the cost of those goods, again there with expenses, we were looking at data from the National Restaurant Association as well as what our cost of goods are when we look at Centennial Grill and at the golf courses. We are projecting that the facility would net somewhere between $55,000 to $57,000 per year, based on the draft financials that we have in front of you now. So there again, we wanted to provide the board with this information, provide you with the updates with the building renderings, as well as the financial projections, some of the operating assumptions that we have at this time, and open it up for discussion.
Rich, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, basically, sort of my thoughts echo what Ray just said. I mean, I think there may be some perception out there that this is going to turn into some kind of a hot spot or something along those lines, that people are walking down the Riverwalk, they're going to sit down, maybe have a glass of beer or a glass of wine, engage your senses. I mean, I don't see it as a negative. My understanding is that if the license is granted, it's a year, so we've got a little bit of time to evaluate it. If it, if the community gives it the 2 thumbs down, we can always revisit it. But I think I'm in favor of it, and I don't see any I don't see any big negatives that are popping up in my mind.
Other comments? Jared?
No, I mean, I've been in favor of it all along.
I've got last question. You want me to go now or last?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, Sue, I guess before I make my general argument, a couple of questions for you. There's a difference between sales tax revenue and sales tax expense. That differential due to the reporting timely, you get to keep the sales tax.
2% allowance you get to keep.
Why are we holding the food and non-alcoholic costs percentages constant? Are you trying to? You've got a revenue increase of 2%. Mm-hmm. Are you saying that you're expecting it to stay consistent over the line?
We didn't, and it has been fairly consistent when we looked at our own operations. So right. We didn't just do a general inflationary increase assuming that. And that was just based on, we looked at our costs at the golf course and what we were doing at the grill. And I think based on menu choices and food choices and brands that we're doing, we've been able to accomplish that. So we kept that simple assumption in this program.
The bugs that we're seeing at the golf course is holding steady?
For the most part. Mm-hmm.
Well, so the original conversation around this was we would have alcohol sales at 10%. Now all of a sudden we're up to 14%.
That was 10% was used. We were in the process of putting this together, and as we were putting this together, we were looking at alcohol sales, looking at the Creative Hospitality Association reports that with the 3 concepts range between 3% to 14%, and then utilizing the information that we were able to find through the National Restaurant Association, that was closer to 12%. Mm-hmm. So that's what's utilized within this report. We wanted to remain consistent with the revenue numbers that we were using for the food sales from the National Restaurant Association. Also apply the same then percentage of sales for the alcohol portion of it as well.
gonna stop selling alcohol when we hit 14%? Or are we gonna continue to sell?
I would think that we would continue to
Is
sell.
that a real question?
That is a real question, because if we're saying this isn't about the alcohol and the wine, and all of a sudden on a pro forma basis, the alcohol and wine is 50% of sales, what are we gonna do? We're gonna say it's not about alcohol sales. And so my question, Ray, was the same one that I asked a couple weeks ago. Well, first off, 10% is what we were saying before, staff was saying before, is alcohol sales. Now it's up to 14. So when I asked Brad, put him on the spot.
Where are you getting?
No, it's 12. It's 12%.
Yeah.
14% of sales, 14.2. Did I do bad math? Let me see, 52, 49, 372, 800, maybe 4257, $425,749, unless you put sales tax in the revenue number. Did you put sales tax number, sales tax? So if I take 52,949 and divide that by 425,749, 12 and a half, I did that.
Time to trade.
Yeah, 12 and a half.
Gotta get a real calculator.
12 and a half, so, oh, you know what, maybe that's overtime. Anyway, neither here nor there. The question still applies. Yeah, we were at 10%, we're now at 12 and a half. But it's not about the alcohol and the wine, which is in direct competition with the retailers there. What happens when we get over that? What if it turns out to be a great thing? And all of a sudden, everybody's stopping by and having a couple of beers before they go downtown for dinner, whatever, and all of a sudden, beer is 40% of the sales. But it's not about the beer and wine, but it can't get to that percentage in my mind without being competition. And that's not what government is about. We are not here to compete with the business.
Can we narrow it down to one question? What are you asking?
Do we stop selling when we get to 12 and a half or 14%, whatever the final number is?
So when should we stop selling? If we're at the end of January and we're 13%, do we stop selling then until we get back to 12? Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, yeah, because if it's not about the beer and the wine, and we're not trying to compete with downtown, how do we control it? Because we are being presented a performer that says, we're not going to be about the beer and the wine. We haven't even gotten to the menu part of it yet.
Yeah, but that seems very speculative, and it seems like
Well,
cross
it's
that bridge when you come to it.
It's just as bad, but you can't cross that bridge when you come to it, because once you put it in, you're not going to get it out. It is not
We don't
government's
control it.
place.
The city controls it.
Yes.
I guess I would say that then we have a certain percentage of ice cream cones we sell. Are we gonna cap those so that we don't compete with Cold Stone Creamery and some of the other ones downtown?
But that's already in place. That's already in place. I can't do anything about that.
I guess we've had this philosophical debate, you and
Shut it down.
I simply absolutely do not see this as any competition. This is nothing more than a location of convenience. Plain and simple. I've been in this community a long time. People are not necessarily going to drive down here to go and take some really bad parking to get to us. You are basically going to find us walking up and down the Riverwalk. That's why we're building in all the times we're not going to be open. As I've said publicly before, and it was before you, and I knew what your answer was going to be. You know, we could be a competition with Heaven on 7. Heck yeah, we could. With that first scenario, when they told us we would generate $4.5 million minimum for a $2 million investment, I mean, from a business proposition, that's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. That's not what we are. So that location there is a convenience one. Again, being a former chamber board member, we are outside the downtown boundaries of the central business district. So the closest location that you have to us is Egg Harbor, which is almost 3/4 of a mile away. I respect your opinion. I just don't see it that way. I don't see somebody saying, you know what, let's go have dinner and we're going to drive down to Riverwalk. Now, there'll probably some people, but the vast majority are not going to do that because they can't find the parking. You know, and if that's the same premise, and I'm a supporter of Water Street, then people should have come out of the weeds and protest against Water Street because there's going to be nothing but bars in proximity to a Riverwalk there. So,
But Water Street is a private business that's collecting property taxes, ignoring the TIF. So that's private business, private competition. This is not government's place. This is up there. You know, it's the same. It's the same thing. In their respect with staff training, they're trying to find other alternative revenue sources. It's not a bad thing in and of itself to try and find other alternative revenues. But you go to talking about Springbrook and trying to turn that into a sports park. again, the conversation there was, that's off the beaten path. People would have to drive out of their way to go to but it's the fact that it's there. Because what's gonna happen is you got Sam, who's a brilliant marketer, she's gonna find a way to market it and pull people in. And that's, it's great that you have that kind of staff, but at the end of the day, we as a park district should not be pushing, we're not a restaurant business, we sell side items as a matter of convenience. You've got Centennial Grill. The purpose is to go and swim, and people are going to want to have a pop and a burger, and kids are going to get hungry. That is a side thing. This location, upgrading this menu and putting in beer and wine, is making it a destination that's going to compete. And you're going to find somebody that's going to park and have the idea that I'm going to go downtown, and then we're going to go back to pick your restaurant.
Bill, at the risk of interrupting, you made a statement, you stated a premise, that Sam is going to be marketing this thing to draw business in.
Yeah. There's a promotion budget.
Have we directed you to market this to drive people in? Are we directing you to market this like a beer garden?
No, I guess, my point.
Well, let's stay with that. There's a $4,500 promotions budget.
There is a promotions budget that is built in to cover costs, sort of much like any one of our facilities, any one of our programs. We do put out materials, we do promote what we have available to the community. So when people come to the Riverwalk, we're going to promote that we do have this available on the Riverwalk for them to be able to go to. So a $4,500 promotional budget is actually a pretty modest.
And the thing, Bill, my point would be, then why should, I understand government. Believe me, I'm with you with the competition. I understand what you're saying, I disagree with you. But why should we be ashamed to compete? We're competing at golf courses. We're competing at the beach. We're competing in soccer. We're competing in t-ball. We're competing in preschool. Should we stop and shut all of that down? Because we're competing? Because we're in direct competition with the private enterprise.
In some of those instances, I would say yes. Because so conversely, we've got a beautiful band show that brings people in over at Central Park. People come from downtown, they fight the parking, they go to different businesses, bring their sandwiches. It's a mini Ravinia. When are we going to start pushing stuff there?
We don't have a liquor license. We don't have a liquor license for that.
But we can chauffeur food over. I mean, there is direct from my perspective, we're going to be competing directly with business. This is not our place. Upgrade, I agree with you, fix the ADA issues. Those things, make the building beautiful. Don't change the menu, don't put wine and beer in this thing.
Thank you. Marie?
Well, first of all, I think it's important for us to address the ADA issues and upgrade that building. As Ray said, it's been sitting there for a long time. I do support this effort because, I walk up and down the Riverwalk all the time. And right now, I think we have 3 picnic tables that you can sit down and, take in the beauty of this particular spot. By putting a space that people can actually come and sit and pause and take in the beauty of this particular area, I think is very worthwhile. And, I think if to offer beer and wine at this, I don't see it as a big deal. I see it as a convenience. I see it as just one of the other offerings that we provide. If folks don't want it, fine, we can do away with it. But I don't see it as a big thing. I think I'd love to be able to sit there and listen to a Carillon concert and have a glass of wine. I don't, but as Ray indicated, the effort it takes to get to that particular spot is pretty significant. So the only traffic you're going to get is foot traffic. People coming down, and all of a sudden it's like, well, let's just sit here and pause for a minute and just rest. I fully support us moving forward with it. I think it's, the community has always said, take care of the resources that we have. I think this is an underutilized asset that we've had for many years. We should do something with it.
Vice President Martinez.
I think we've got a year of evaluation, hard analysis of all aspects of it. I don't share your fear that we're going to be, 50% of the sales are going to be alcohol along the way. It may be 0%, and I can make the same conjecture that you just made, that, it'll go over 14%. I could say it can be 0 along the way. Neither one of us knows exactly what that future will be. But as I was asking Brad beforehand, hopefully we've got the capability to capture the data in an analytical form so that we can tell exactly where our peak hours for each of the items on the menu are being sold and whether it's profitable to continue either with that item along the way or with that time frame for the offering. And cities can review us at the end of the year for the alcohol, the liquor license. So we've got a year in which we're using most of the money is going towards upgrade of the facility to make it the restrooms and the accessibility and whether it's just a seat where they're not even buying anything, it provides an amenity there along the way. And that's maybe the future. A year from now, we may say it's not worth the effort to even have any sort of food or beverage menu at the place because we've got a facility that is a nice stopping point along the Riverwalk. So I think we need to pay attention during the course of the next year to figure out exactly where the success is. And I don't fear that we're going to be overly successful and victim of our own success in the alcohol part of it along the way. So my question, some time ago was, how did it get? And we mentioned the process along the way, but in the budget discussion, it went from a B project, which is if we have money available. What was the process to move it up to a priority to get it done by Memorial Day?
That came from you. That came from the board. And when you approved the goals back in January, that's goal number 3, is renovate the Riverwalk Eatery. So we did that in this room and approved those goals. And it was always in the budget. And through the talks, that's how it got elevated, and it definitely got elevated as of January 22nd of this year. And the board adopted those goals as the district-wide goals. One of 10, 9.
So usually for capital projects, we do an evaluation of how it meets the criteria for the evaluation. Did that go through that process?
No, it was through the discussion of the board who identified it as a goal. It was moved up.
Mike, I would agree. I think it's going to regulate itself. Certainly if business owners are up in arms about their declining revenues and their safety issues, we will reassess, as will the city. So, let's give it a try.
What sort of percentage of the downtown area restaurant revenue does this represent? Are we 1/10 of 1%? Do we have any idea of how big a slice this is compared with the whole?
6 decimal places out of it.
It's got to be really tiny compared to what the consultants had said, even the full-blown out restaurants.
I think our whole peak season would be a bad couple of weeks at Hugo's. Kirsten, do you?
I think we need to continue to look for more interesting ways like this one of getting alternative revenue. If we can get $1 or $2 off of a beer or an upgraded serving of hummus versus what's available there now, I think we should do that. The alternative with facing minimum wage increases, facing healthcare increases, is not delivering the same level of service that our residents have come to enjoy, or, God forbid, we raise taxes. And this way, you can get it on the fly. I think it makes tremendous amount of sense. And I'm not concerned about it becoming Margaritaville. I think we're going to set the right tone with the park police presence there. So I think that will be fine. Plus, because we're not building it that much bigger, we won't have the storage to be able to accommodate a 50% or 80% single service of beer and wine. It just won't be. That in itself will end up putting a cap on how much you can sell because it's how much you can actually hold and chill.
Park police are going to be there?
So yeah, there are plans to have park police.
Park police is on the Riverwalk now.
They're on the Riverwalk now, so they used to be reassigned.
So we're going to reassign from regular duties and not backfill?
I think what was discussed at the board meeting before was just to make sure that there was a presence.
Right.
Not
So
that
I'm
they were
gonna
gonna
post somebody
sit
sitting
there,
right.
but to make sure that the right tone is
Sure.
maintained, to keep it safe.
Park police are down the walk all the time. I see them all the time.
And the busier it is, the more they,
Well,
because-
they're where the people are.
right,
So
right.
if they're near the dandelion fountain, you'll see park police at the dandelion fountain. You see more people down at the volleyball courts in that area, you'll see them down there. That's my experience. Going up and down.
I have beforehand the sort of comparative data. Do we have any history of what sort of volume that Belgio's had, or way back when McDonald's did it, what sort of volume of sales that they might have had at
Not McDonald's. We've been operating it, the Park District has been operating it for the last several years. And this past year was actually our peak year for both the paddleboats as well as the concession sales. So the data that we have for the past several years, since we opened Centennial Grill and took on the eatery operations that same year, we factored that in as we were looking at the assumptions that we got down here for both the expenses as well as revenue.
Do we have any gross sales figures for the eatery?
Gross sales for concessions, this past year, our gross sales for just the food sales was right around $50,000. Very limited menu. Top seller really is your soft serve ice cream cones that we have out of there, which we will continue to have in addition to having milkshakes available. But then beyond that, it's really been limited to popcorn, hot pretzels, really concession items. There's very limited storage currently, and just not the ability to do anything greater as far as the menu item is concerned until renovations are done.
And the hours of operation comparatively?
Hours of operation are similar as far as the start times in the mornings. With this, we are projecting during the peak season, so Memorial Day through Labor Day over the summer months, we would look to open earlier, to have an individual there earlier so that there's coffee available, possibly some pastry, something, so that people walking up and down the Riverwalk, if they wanted to grab a cup of coffee, they'd have that ability. Right now,
8 a.m.
Tons.
right now we open, or previously we've opened later in the morning, and we're typically closed by dusk. That's when the paddleboats close, and we typically follow that schedule. With this, we're projecting to be open until 10 o'clock and then close until 10.
Does the expanded menu, Brad, offer, aside from alcohol, offer any particular challenges, or?
No, the challenges will continue to be some of the storage and just ensuring that we don't have such a large menu that it requires additional storage, so we are trying to do something there. The menu that we've provided, that's really as a proposed, it's a draft menu. It's something that we will continue to refine going into the season. But I think what you'll see is we want to be able to take it a step up, a level up certainly from what we have now, where it's really the hot dogs, the pretzels, the popcorn, to be able to provide more of the wraps, salads, a panini sandwich, flatbreads, items that can be put together using countertop type units versus having the full-fledged grill with a hood. That's not something that we are incorporating into.
During the summer, do we use the eatery as kind of some backup storage area for Centennial Beach?
No, actually, it's the complete opposite.
Okay.
We have greater storage at Centennial Grill, and that's where we typically take our deliveries. And then as we need items over at the eatery, we will then get them carted over to the eatery.
But we have adequate space that process could still continue?
That process will continue. Within the renovations, we are looking at, there would be a walk-in cooler that would be attached to the eatery for freezer and refrigeration. That's something we're very limited on right now, as well as some additional storage. So I think we would certainly still continue to utilize Centennial Grill for some of the larger items, and then as we needed to bring it over, we could do that.
How did we develop a menu for Centennial Grill? Did we have customer folk
Well, we had, with Centennial Grill, we did receive some feedback from customers, primarily when we were looking at doing renovations at Centennial Beach. We had some of the beach patrons say that they wanted to be able to have expanded concessions there. It didn't get into details as far as the type. Then we worked with really a consulting firm again, just to give us a sense as to some of the more popular meal items at aquatic facilities. We looked at some of the other aquatic facilities that are in the region, what they serve, and then really finalized that food menu with our food and beverage manager that works with Centennial Grill. She came in and refined that menu. Each year, going back to your point earlier, we do track every item that's sold throughout the course of the year. And we run reports on what are the top selling items, what are the items that are not selling well. And that item the menu at Centennial Grill has evolved based upon what we've seen within sales. We've tried to increase in areas where we've seen greater sales, and then menu items that had not done well, we've actually taken off and not sold. We would love to do the same here.
I would think that during the development here, maybe Marie would be out with a clipboard asking the folks. But I think that the more we get in the involvement of the community and our customers in making the choices rather than ivory tower approach, I think we're better off and we satisfy the needs more quickly. So I would look at probably doing some tweaking even before we open on the menu.
And some of the items that you see that are on the menu here that are proposed are some of our better selling items that we have down at Centennial Grill. Some of the wraps that we're projecting as well.
I don't know if it's the same audience, that's the things. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, some of that also came out of the consultant's report.
Yes.
Right.
And some of that was pulled from there as well, so.
I think you make a good point though, because this would be a little bit different endeavor for us. Getting some customer feedback even early on could be beneficial. What else? Any questions?
I think it's gonna be on an island as usual, 6-1. So be it, it's the will, we'll move forward and support it, right?
Right.
That's the way we operate.
Anything else? Item next is.
Oh, I'm sorry, but the city council has not voted on this, right?
Correct.
We haven't either. So this went through liquor commission, this went to city council.
First reading next Tuesday.
Our next decision point would be the contract for the construction.
Yes, and I have an update on that. We actually had a bid opening for the Riverwalk eatery renovation project. The construction budget we set for it was $400,000. We had 7 bidders who submitted bids today. The lowest bid was $410,000. The highest was $555,000. The bid median was $479,000. There was a deduct of $5,000 if we don't accept the alternates. Gets us a $405,000. I think with negotiation we could probably bring in at just under $400,000. But we still have to do reference checks. We're going to do that in the next week and prepare a memo and provide a recommendation, and it'll be ready for approval at the March 12th meeting. That's for the renovations.
Anything else?
Has the construction climate changed then? Because usually your estimates are
Starting to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened is just our overall working through the process of scoping the project toward the end, but right before bid, I mean, we just found as far as the food service equipment and everything that's needed, we wanted to get as much as we could. So we tried to run as close to the budget. It's early in the year, but I think the other thing is just like the site itself, it is isolated. The contractors are looking, where can I park the way up there? What can I bring here? Not a large, heavy equipment. And so they figured all that in their bid. The other thing is this is a very aggressive schedule. I mean, we want to be open and ready by Memorial Day weekend. We have 60 days, and so a couple contractors, they bailed out. They said, we can't bid on this. We feel it's going to be really tough and aggressive project. But at the same time, we knew that going into it.
I love the way Brad breaks into a sweat every time he hears Memorial Day.
Yeah.
It's only a couple months away.
Yeah, I mean, think
snow
about it.
right up until then.
Rather be frozen until you get
Contract approval will be in mid-March, and the goal is to have it done, mid-May. And so it's going to be a very aggressive schedule, but it is achievable. So we're going to take it on.
Anything else? Registration software?
Yes, we want to provide the board with an update tonight on the registration software. We have, over the past several months, been looking at the different registration softwares, and to begin with, I just want to provide a little bit of history as to why we're at where we're at and why we need to look at changing registration software. Our current registration software class, it's been used by the Park District since 2001. We received notice, actually a couple of years ago at this point, that beginning in 2017, class would no longer be supported. Class lacks, and if you've been online and tried to navigate through some of the different programs that are on our website, lacks a lot of the technology features that are integrated into today's software solutions, and we'll show you some examples of that later. New software is going to improve the overall customer experience when looking online at our programs, mainly the search functionality, maintaining their household information. They will be able to actually go in and actually retrieve a lot more of their family information for the programs that they've registered for online, and as well as completing the overall online registration process. Updates are needed to software and just with a number of things to achieve PCI compliance, so that's something that we've had to keep in mind. A change in software, we want to look at changing software prior to opening the Activity Center in 2016. It's important that this is a large undertaking for staff for us to be able to make that overall transition. We don't want to do that at the same time that we're opening a new facility. And why now? A decision on software right now would actually allow us the opportunity to take advantage of an incentive that's out there for a group buy through one of the providers. Our overall project goals going into it: improve online customer experience, ease of use for both customers and for staff. This is our core software that many of our staff are using on a daily basis and are utilizing throughout the course of the entire day. So really looking at a software that is going to be not only customer friendly but staff friendly. Improve the overall functionality associated with marketing programs and with accepting donations. That's one of the limitations right now with the current software. Achieve PCI compliance through the use of a hosted software solution. Yes, sir.
The acronym PCI again is?
Processing credit card information.
Right.
And
what does PCI stand for again?
you know what? I do not know.
Payment card initiative.
It was
Processing credit card information.
yeah. It's processing credit card information.
It's all tied to the security.
It's all protecting us.
Right, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I understand. I can never remember.
So essentially, that is one of the biggest pieces here. When you have, retail chains like Jewel getting tagged and getting attacked, we're only going to become more and more of a liability if we continue to host our own credit card processing. So this is just going to become something that's a no-brainer as far as liability to get it off of our infrastructure.
Payment card industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Payment card industry.
And the final goal, really to address future needs of Park District programs and facilities as we look to bring new things on.
That includes golf?
Well, golf, and actually as we go through this, the software solution that we're going to be recommending, we did take into consideration golf. The actual module through this software company for golf was purchased several months ago by Golf Now, which we are currently using. So that application through Golf Now actually is one of the better systems that's out there.
So we'll be fully integrated,
Not necessarily, no.
Not right away. We're going to do golf and...
Yes, maybe we're going to...
They are separate, they are two separate
fully
items.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I missed a Brett, but did you say how long the software's been around? Or are you getting to that point?
ActiveNet, or the software that we're going to be recommending, has been around for several years. I don't know exactly. We've been with Class since 2001, and it was available actually several years prior to that.
My concern is that we're not going to be their first one on.
Oh, no.
We're not trying to...
Active is like when you set up for the marathon.
In fact, the biggest park districts around are all moving back. Schaumburg's off.
And you'll see an example, we're going to show them the example.
No, it's active is for sure.
Yes.
Well, I don't know
They've
if
been
you're,
around a
but
long
when
time.
I've used it, yes.
Yep. Just to give some background on the process that we went through in determining the selection, we first started investigating software solutions in summer of 2014. We actually put together an evaluation team comprised of multiple departments. I mentioned before that this is one of our core softwares. It not only involves registration and IT and programming, but also our marketing department, our finance department. So we had representatives from each of those departments as part of that team. In October, there was a software symposium actually hosted by the Bolingbrook Park District, because a number of park districts were starting to go through this process, where they brought a lot of the different software solutions that are out there basically under one roof, and allowed staff to begin to evaluate and take a look at the software products that were out there. From that, we identified 3 solutions as the best options to meet our needs. There are a number of very small providers out there that can do a few things for your organization, but really there's only a few that are really a comprehensive solution. So the 3 that were identified were Max Galaxy, Vermont Systems, better known as RecTrack, and then ActiveNet. Last year in the fall, the evaluation team, we started conducting demos of the 3 software solutions, and these demos were online demos where we were able to speak with their representatives, actually work through the software. Each demo lasted about 2 hours and got pretty in-depth, and we did a number of demos with each of the companies. After the initial demos, we realized that really RecTrack and ActiveNet were the 2 solutions that were going to be the best fit for our district, so we asked them for price quotes and then scheduled additional demos so that we could dive into it further. And then eventually, after all of the demos and looking at everything, the evaluation team scored both solutions and developed a recommendation, and that is to move forward with ActiveNet. As Dirk mentioned, there's a number of districts right now, a number of large districts in the area that are looking to move to ActiveNet, and really for a number of the benefits that you see up there. The benefits that we really saw going through this as compared to the other products were just the ease of use for customers and staff. This seems to be the most intuitive product that is out there. The overall online functionality and search capabilities, and we'll show a couple of examples from a few larger districts. Minimal product customization. This is something that out of the box we can begin working with, and we don't have to manipulate very much of. When you start getting into products where you have to start doing a lot of customization, we do a lot of customization with class right now. Customization is what begins to get you in trouble, because then things don't operate really the way that they should. Enhanced marketing and communication tools. This actually has the integration of social media into the program registration. So someone registers for a program, they can automatically tie it to their Facebook or to Twitter or whatever it might be. If they have other friends, people that they want to have join them within the programs, they can do that. There's actually, with ActiveNet, a dedicated fundraising and development module for accepting donations to the district. Yes.
Is that along the lines of like a donor database that a nonprofit might use, or?
I don't know if a nonprofit would use, but what this does, and I'll show you an example of it, is that up on your screens you can have a separate tab for donations to where someone can go in specifically to make a donation to, say, the Naperville Parks Foundation, and in a couple of different areas. It also appears and is available to customers as they're checking out with a program registration. So it really separates it from your event registration.
But to Mike's point, though, if the foundation receives something, I think they're looking to be able to acknowledge that and thank, so that they would have access to address or Twitter account.
There's reporting capabilities in that. You can also have the system flag when there's a specific amount, like let's say you want to not just acknowledge but thank someone that gives a certain dollar amount and above. You can set that kind of alarms to alert recreation staff, and then they can, we can send them out a personalized letter to kind of show that we're really thankful.
So you could send
us under the foundation would be in a position to make that acknowledgement.
They could make that acknowledgement, or depending upon the dollar value, however you have it set up in the system could do it automatically as far as acknowledging and thanking.
Were we thinking we'd set it up with a foundation button and a park district button under donor?
It certainly could be set up that way. And actually, within the donation module, you can have you can identify specific projects. So if you have something where let's say the foundation had a specific project that they wanted to donate towards, you could have multiple choices.
Nice.
Overall strong reporting tools, large online capacity to handle peak registration periods. We know that this is critical for us, especially during the soccer registrations. Through some of the other software products that are out there, you're limited on the number of what they call agents or available online customers at one time, and then you have to purchase additional for those peak times. This has a much larger capacity to handle peak registrations. Unlimited use of software as workstations are added. It's not, the pricing is not based on licenses or number of workstations. It's actually based upon the revenue that is generated through your program registrations, your transactions, and we'll get into that. But it's as we grow as a district, as workstations are added, there's no additional costs for that. Mentioned PCI compliance through a fully hosted solution. ActiveNet actually holds the highest available PCI certification for payment processing that is available. They have very secure networks, strong data centers, and security. It's something that they promote very, very much. This is the same company that works not only with park districts, but it was mentioned before, like the Chicago Marathon, a lot of the different races that are out there. I believe even the Naperville Marathon may be using them. That's what they use for their registration. So they're taking registrations for a number of different events throughout the nation. And then with ActiveNet right now, there's an opportunity for lower product pricing through a group buy incentive. And basically what that group buy incentive is based on the number of park districts, current class customers in Illinois that move to ActiveNet. If we do that prior to the end of June, then there's a significant reduction, basically a 34% reduction in the overall fees that we would be charged for ActiveNet. They're really looking to incentivize Illinois park districts right now to move to their product. So that's something that we have to take into consideration.
Brian?
Yes.
You mentioned the others are using it now. Would it be possible for the park district to be the agent for a fee for an event so that they could register through the park district for an event almost similar to like a program, and we charge back the agency that's hosting the event?
They could. I mean, we would set it up as like a program registration if they were. But the thing is really when people register for programs that are on a website, they're registering for a park district program.
Right.
So I don't see us being able to, let's say, like one of the local road races wanted to have their registration through the park district. I don't know that would be available to us. A couple of websites that we just want to show you briefly. Chicago Park District is utilizing ActiveNet, as well as Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Department, as well as a number of others throughout the nation. But this gives you a sense as to when you go onto their program page, what it would look like overall. The search functionalities, there's a large number of filters that can be used off to the left-hand side. So much like you go onto a retail website right now and you can really start drilling down, you're able to do that within this software as well. In the Minneapolis example, we'll actually show you how Chicago doesn't have it set up this way, but you have the capability to actually drill down to where you don't see this page, but when you want to look for programs and where they're located, it will start pulling up a Google map. And when you start clicking on those bubbles, it will then tell you what programs are available at those facilities. So if you're looking for something close to your home, then you can.
I think that's a great feature for how transient
tremendous.
has been. And the confusion with Knack Park and Knack Knoll, and Kendall School and Kendall Park.
Yep.
There's another really nice filter that is for time, and I could see this coming in handy. For example, if little Timmy's in a class from 6 to 8, and you would like to sign yourself up for a class, then you could drill down and search for what's nearby 6 to 8, and then take advantage of something for yourself.
Yep. If you scroll to the top, I think of that page, there you go. The donation. Okay. The donation. This is and any of the pages, one of the tabs can actually be the donations. So in here, Chicago Park District has it set up to where if you want to donate a $50 general donation, and then we have a description of that, you're able to do that, or you can put in any amount that you would want to donate. So again, this is a unique feature of this particular registration software.
but from there, could you drop down to your point, the foundation, there's the ability to restrict that, or is that just not in this module?
It's just not shown here. They actually have a lot of other really cool like visual donation efforts. Like you could have one of those little bars that fills up higher as you get more donations to meet a goal. You can really, that portion is really customizable to what you need and what you're trying to achieve.
For, I believe, Minneapolis, if you go there, with the facility rentals, one of the nice things right now is you can actually go online, you can pull up maps of the individual parks and then where facilities or rentable areas are available within those parks. In addition to that, you're able to look at facility availability. So if someone's interested in renting one of our picnic pavilions for function, they can actually go to, and it will display with a calendar, a date on a calendar, and see what the availability is, and then be able to submit a request to actually reserve the facility at that time.
But they just submit a request. They can't
You can have it
lock
set
in.
up either way.
Okay.
So we can set it up to where they submit a request, and then that application goes through us and we approve it, or they can actually book it online. Same thing with setting up a household account. Someone can set up a new household account, very easily go through and put in all the contact information. We can collect the emergency contact information, all of that. They set up their household, and they can submit basically to the Park District, to our registration office, and then we approve the account at a registrant level so that they receive them.
So in that situation, can we save the information on a family? So
Yes.
So for example, you go in one, sign up your family,
Yes.
and then when you go back into register, you pull up whatever your record and.
Right now, you have to have your numeric barcode and PIN. Our current system, we can't even allow someone to set their own username and password. This system, they're setting their own username, their own password. If they forget their password, they can then get the immediate response back of what that is. This is set up to where when you put in your street address, we can have it set up within the system to where it will automatically recognize whether that household is a resident household of the Naperville Park District or falls outside of the Park District. So a lot of functionality with this. And we also have the capability that you can initially set up your household, and then we can limit once you submit it, that you can come back in, you can view, you can gather information from your household as far as past registrations, but you can't necessarily go in and change like the age of your child if all of a sudden now you're trying to register for a program or
And it was sold out, so you
Yeah.
said it's.
This really empowers the residents, not just in the ability to go back and look at their own receipts, look at their own transactions, but they can pull up, tax information. They can upload documents. For example, if we need a waiver that needs to be signed, they can do it online. In order to get their proof of residence, they can upload those documents, and then we can view them without them having to come in. I mean, it really empowers them in what they can do with us.
Would we also have the capability to track scholarships in here?
Yes. Scholarships as well as Sandy was talking earlier about inclusion needs.
Right.
So, yes. So this system can be set up to where if someone that requires an inclusion aid registers for one of our programs, we can automatically get notification that they have been registered for that program.
Now, first of all, I wanted to comment before when you put together the evaluation thing, I think it was a great idea. They had multiple disciplines involved. Have you had the opportunity to talk with any actual users, either Chicago, Minneapolis, whatever, to find out, geez, this is great, but we wish we had done this, or we should have bought this, or could have got it in blue, or.
Yeah. We've not talked with any of the larger organizations. One of the other things, in addition to our own evaluation team, we've been actually had numerous meetings over the last several months with a number of area park districts, representatives from each of those districts who are going through a similar exercise right now, evaluating software solutions and sharing information, sharing their experiences on what they're seeing, the people that they've talked to with other agencies. So with any software, there are always going to be I wish you could do this or that. What we've seen in going through this process is that the ActiveNet product is the most progressive product that's out there on the market. They have really taken a lot of the feedback that districts have provided over the last several years and integrated it into the solution.
One of those being that out of the box, it makes the rec and roll section mobile friendly. So you could quickly look up a park, look up a class, look up a time, and I just pulled up a little emulator and put in this website from Minneapolis and just put it in there, and that's what it looks like.
Go back to the PowerPoint. Nope.
Nope.
Go down one. There you go. The financials associated with ActiveNet. So what we've shown you, with the incentive program right now, actually the costs associated with moving to ActiveNet with the incentives are less than what we're currently paying for our class licenses and credit card fees. We pay over $150,000 a year right now with our combined credit card fees and as well as the licenses that are associated with the current software. The incentive and the way that it's set up is there's a technology fee, so 1.5% of every transaction would then go to ActiveNet. Credit card processing fee of 2.75%, so if someone does their transaction online, it's 4.25. It's the 1.5 plus the 2.75. The incentive right now is 34% discount through the Group Buy program off of the technology fee. So 34% off of that 1.5%. Based on our current revenues and applying it to that, we would pay roughly $120,000 a year for ActiveNet. As we add programs, as our revenues grow, then obviously that would increase. But even with a significant jump in our overall revenues, it would take a while to get back to the current level that we're paying.
So we're paying $150,000 now.
I'm sorry.
The incentive is permanent?
The incentive, we're working through the first draft of the contract right now. There would be a 3-year contract with automatic 3-year renewals, and you would start at that lowest incentive rate. They would have the option to, much like any software provider, provide or have you have increases each year, annual increases to that software. But yes, then that would over time, it would bump up, but we would not have a huge jump of all of a sudden now we lose the 34% discount.
So repeating the numbers, we're paying $150K now.
Yes.
And under this it'd be $120.
Yes.
The first year until the volume increases.
We're paying $150,000. That's a combined. We pay about $107,000 of that is credit card processing fees, and then we have another $46,000 that we pay annually for licenses. And with moving the credit card fees as well as then the transaction fee and their incentive, what they quoted based on our current revenues is about $120,000 a year.
We'd love to go through it like tomorrow, but this is like changing your logo. This is gonna be a huge. I mean, this is what we do, you know, and so this is gonna be months and months and months. Well worth it, obviously, but I mean, a question sometimes comes up. Well, if it's cheaper, just go do it.
Well, you've got a schedule on that slide, I think.
Yeah. The next steps really would be spring 2015. So right now, the execution of a contract with ActiveNet. In order to take advantage of the incentive, we need a signed contract before the end of June, which we're already reading through the draft agreement right now. So as long as we can come to terms on a contract that we would feel comfortable then bringing to the board for your approval, we would meet that deadline. This summer and fall, we would start staff training and overall software implementation. When I say software implementation, it's the back of the house. It's really the setup of the facilities and starting to get information into the system. We would complete a complete transition to ActiveNet next winter, really this time next year, so that our first registration would be spring 2016 registration. It takes a lot of time. I mean, this software is the backbone of what we do. So to make sure that it's set up properly, we need that time. In addition to, we do not want the first registration under new software to be one of our largest registrations, which is spring soccer that occurs in November.
You're just chicken.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Those people are used to problems.
Very understanding.
Yeah.
Plus
soccer. I'm sure it would be fine, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
So,
tenth thing.
with that, are there any questions?
No, my opinion is that the review and the analysis is great. And I think the timing, as you say, to get this operational before the activity center comes online, it's a real good idea. Dave?
I think staff really did their homework on this.
Just curious on the user transition, how drastic is it, how much intensive will
Well,
staff
and that's something where, one of the other things that we will do is we will create really an internal transition team. So again, taking members of the affected departments, really putting them together, and then starting to talk through the overall setup of the software. And then some of those questions as to, do we begin just transferring household information into the new system? Or do we maybe provide an incentive or have residents actually create their own accounts, since now it's very easy to do on a website. We can get updated information. We have a lot of outdated information that's in our current system. We've been using it for 15 years now. So this could be a good opportunity to really start fresh. Again, provide some sort of incentive to have residents be able to set up their own household account online and that way. But that's something that we still need to discuss through the pros and cons of staff and determine what the best route is.
Question, once a family is in there, once there's a household account set up, what do you see time-wise for it to take somebody to register, for example, for spring soccer, new system versus current system?
New system versus current system, I believe it would be much faster, just based on the intuitiveness of the system.
Yeah, there's two things definitely to note. First off, we own the current software, so if any of that data was ever needed again, we could pull it up, spin up the server, turn it on. We would probably keep it turned off just for liability reasons. If we need something, we could go in there and get it out. The second point is that currently the way the modules are set up, you have to actually go into each module and then pull up the menu and then pull up the actual piece of information you want to get to. ActiveVent is really intuitive to where you can either have preset desktops for users. For example, if you have someone who's just going to be doing registration, you would have the most used registration functionality built into their view. If you have someone who's scheduling an event, you would have that view set up for them. So it's much more intuitive, way less clicks to get to things. I kind of always joke around, the rule of thumb is if it takes more than 2 clicks to get somewhere, someone's not going to do it. And this is definitely meets the, about 2 to 3 clicks at most to get somewhere.
What's a click?
I think it's also worthwhile to mention the fact that the PCI stuff is hosted someplace else, and all that data is not on our system is probably a really good thing to move to.
One thing that wasn't really mentioned either, it was kind of a little side bullet. As far as support, when we're going to have facilities online, they're going to be open from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's going to be another resource for staff to be able to call with an issue, say, hey, we're having this repeated issue, and just kind of be able to be more in front for staff as far as support.
Okay, anything else on registration software? Okay, next. Finance policy review.
Exciting. Okay, the February 13th weekly packet, you should have received all of our financial policies. We do, as part of our overall policy, we review our financial policies once a year. Dirk had reviewed some of them that have legal implications, and then staff went through all of the others. The Finance Committee met on January 7th and February 10th to review the policies, and we had a couple changes or recommendations from the Finance Committee that were incorporated into your draft policies. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll just mention 2 that we actually changed, and the first was the purchasing policy, and there Dirk had just some legal verbiage he updated, but we also added one section under raised purchasing authority, and that's based on our new organizational structure, that superintendents and managers, we bumped up their limit to a max of $5,000. So it's more functional and operationally makes sense for positions such as Omar's, actually, to give him more authority, but that max would be $5,000. And then the second change that we made was to our fund balance policy, and that was specifically for the golf fund. We took a look at that policy, and out of the committee made a recommendation to change that. If you recall, we were at a straight $1 million. To go in line with what we've been doing with the fund, we changed that policy to equal the debt service amount through 2019. So that new amount is around $760,000. That would be in that target will change every year. In 2019, when the debt is retired, we're going to take a whole new look at where golf is at that point as a fund, and then recommend a new fund balance change for that.
And then it was a finance committee's recommendation that we adopt and approve those changes as Sue enumerated.
Yep, and as I mentioned, just as a heads up, once the activity center is up and running, that'll run to the rec fund. We will be looking at the balances in there with that new activity. There'll be more risk and exposure, so there may be some changes coming in the next year or so just for the rec fund balance. March 12th, they would just be put on the consent agenda with your consensus tonight for approval.
Any questions, comments? Okay, annual review of administrative policies.
Yes, every year the leadership team reviews the annual or the administrative policy document. Also, I know Katie sent the email through, or I should say weekly packet. The administrative policies and the personnel policies were sent through on the February 20th weekly packet to the board for review. And there was one comment on the introductory employment period I just want to read for the group, just so everyone's aware of what that entails. Essentially, it's after consulting with legal and discussion with the leadership team, and this is from Katie, so I recommend the elimination of this policy. 6-month introductory period does not tie out to any other remarkable date or time frame. After 30 days of employment, employees are eligible for unemployment if they lose their job through no fault of their own. Eligible staff may enroll in group insurance plans the first of the month following their date of hire, and there is no 6-month waiting period to participate in any other district offered benefit. Full-time employees typically receive a performance appraisal following their 6-month anniversary. However, part of the time, employees do not receive a 6-month appraisal. Supervisors strive to complete appraisals for part-time positions on an annual basis. All supervisors are tasked with addressing job performance concerns as they occur, not just at 6-month and annual appraisals. So I just want to share that. As far as the administrative policies document, it was sent via track changes. So as board members, you had a chance, if you as you look through this, to see all the changes. A lot of them were just minor typos, just kind of housekeeping, cleaning type items. No really major changes. But again, this is an annual process, and we want to open up to the board and see if there's any discussions or comments on that.
One thing that I should have brought this forward before, it's not a big deal, but this on page 9 in the organizational planning documents.
Yes.
Second paragraph, Park District's long-range planning is comprised of the strategic plan, the recreation master plan, the planning master plan, and the financial plan. Then down below there are bullets, strategic plan, and then just master plan. So it doesn't tie back directly to the, because you have the recreation master plan and the planning master plan, but then down below you just mentions master plan. So maybe that wording could just be expanded so it links in.
Okay.
Can we change the master plan to planning master plan?
We changed the, it used to be the open space and recreation master plan, and we just changed it to master plan.
Oh, I think planning is just a little typo.
Well, I just bring it up for review.
Yeah, the planning was there as a clarifier, and so we could just, if we were to scratch that, if that's correct, it would just basically a typo. Everything else should be corresponding with the above paragraph, but we'll look at that and make sure.
Okay,
That's
yeah, just so it's consistent.
Or you can save it for next year so you got something to change.
That's true.
Yeah, I was looking at all the little typos and everything. I think it's pretty good.
And yet, every year.
Every year. And there's even one. There's another one. There's a numbering issue. One of these, so we'll address that too. That I caught.
No, the $100,000 for raise attention.
I a couple,
Vice President, are you doing Rick?
I have a couple comments.
Oh, okay.
Page 16,
Yes.
in your list of examples, you say examples of facilities that can be used jointly, and everything's a facility until you get to number 8.
Yeah.
Construction of. I
Yes.
think you can just.
We can. And that's the old kind of terminology, like years ago. I mean, we consider country heating pump a facility. Is it? Oh, so.
I'm okay with it, but you're using the word construction of.
Oh, yeah.
We got an action
I'm fine
rather
with
than a
you.
facility there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
construction within the facility.
Yep.
I have one other comment on page 28. Under the scholarship program, 27 and 28. I'm looking at number 8, and I'm trying to figure out what the difference between that and number 3 is. It seemed like you're saying the identical thing between those two. Just take a look at that and see if they're the same.
Yeah, you can combine the two.
It just seemed like you should be able to.
Yeah.
It seems like number 8 is maybe a little more.
I don't care which words you
More
keep,
open.
but it seems the same as what 3 is.
We'd like to be clear.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, they can figure that out, but I don't think they need to say it twice, that's all.
Like one is saying that they evaluate.
That's how we evaluate it, and
requirement,
then that.
The other is how you develop the standards
Okay.
of evaluation, so.
Yeah, but we can combine it into one to say this is what we utilize, and it's periodically updated, so it's just under one folder.
And that's all I have for the administration.
I ask the question every year, does the board have to approve these?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's part of signature accreditation or PAPRA, just to go that the board has, we as staff presented to the board, we had a discussion, and we're gonna go for another year.
But there's no legal requirement along the way.
No,
It's all within the purview of the executive.
Yes, and I think the approval is just to show that it's like, you know, rather than, oh yeah, no, we talked about it
Just
before.
put it approved by on this.
Anything else on administrative policy?
Yeah.
On administrative, I had a couple comments on the HR policy, but I can send those to.
Yeah, you can send this to Katie.
They're more related words than any for education.
What did you find the part on bodily fluids, Dicky?
He says tucking in his pants.
That doesn't have to be.
That wasn't awkward for me, by the way.
Item next, Hunter's Wood Playground renovation.
Yes, in the February 20th weekly packet, preparation for presenting a contract to the board for approval at the March 12th meeting. We provided just a summary type memo identifying the improvements at Hunter's Woods Playground renovation. Total of $220,000 is allocated for this project. We just had bid opening earlier this week. The contractor Pure Play Systems, who we worked with in the past, so we have good references with them, and they came in with our 5% contingency that we add to our bid amounts with the low responsible bidders. Came in at $184,000, so almost $40,000 in the budget. So just an update. We plan on presenting a contract for approval on March 12th.
Just runs above the normal just playground because of the.
There's some bridge renovation work there. A typical playground will probably be in the $120,000, $140,000 range. So yeah, this is definitely about $40,000-$50,000 more for that bridge renovation.
The Ridgeview Park Tennis Court renovation.
Similar type scenario. February 20th, a weekly packet went out on Ranchview Park Tennis Court renovation project. We're proposing renovations to the. It's actually a reservoir with the city of Naperville water. On the surface is utilized for tennis programs at Ranchview Park, and we need to renovate the surface because of the type of material that it is. It's deteriorating, and we have $180,000 allocated for that project. We haven't had the bid opening yet, but we plan on being within budget for that project, and we plan on presenting the contract for that work at the March 12th meeting as well.
You're doing something different with this one now, this time, right?
Yeah, well, actually.
actually, there's like a western and eastern half of this tennis court, and one side where it's not a carpet, but it's a type of surfacing that we plan on putting onto it. It's not the plastic tile that you see at the inline rinks, but we're trying that. But first, before we can do that, we're getting a approval from the City of Naperville Water Department, because they want to make sure what we're putting on tile is never going to seep through or cause any issues. So we're still waiting on that approval. If we get the approval, we're going to try that as an experiment on one of the halves. If we do not get the approval, we're just going to move forward running both those services.
What are the potential benefits of that ultimate material?
We think the problem is when you resurface the concrete, it was originally made of this lightweight material called gunite, and so it breaks down the freeze-thaw cycles that we have in the Midwest here. The carpeting is just going to last much longer. I mean, the surface is going to be, you have more control, it's going to be steadier. Now, what happens underneath, eventually we're going to have to take that up and repair it, but the carpet is going to have a much smoother, flatter, more playable surface than the concrete. But it's been explored in other park districts. We checked it out. It does work well. But before we can install it, though, we still have to get approval from the city. But it's worth a try, and so we are exploring it. And we're seeing if that's possible.
From a playability standpoint?
Yeah, we've talked with our tennis staff about it, and we're willing to give it a try.
What are you expecting to get the life on that? Because normally a paint and resurface on 6 to 9 courts is somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000, $40,000, depending what needs to be done.
The actual cost or duration?
Duration of your life. So I'm trying to say, if it's normal is
typical tennis court, we could get probably easily close to almost 12 to 15 years. This is totally different because it's a concrete reservoir surface, and it's basically going about every 7 to 8 years. The concrete for the repairs are probably even less than that. So we're hoping to get 7 to 8 years out of carpet.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. If we paint and do the basics, that's $40,000, and we get 8 years out of it. If we have to do it twice, it's $80,000. We're looking to spend $180 here. I'm trying to get. I understand what you're doing, but where's that break even?
Yeah.
So that's what I'd be looking for. So if you spend $80,000 over that same time just sticking with paint, and even if you have to do it twice in that same time, you're still better off by, if my numbers in my brain are right, you're better off 50, 60 grand.
We will provide an analysis in the contract memo. And I think the first step is see if the city can allow us to do it, and then we'll provide an analysis you compare it to.
Okay.
And then we can, down the road, probably convert it all to like that carpet type material. But we'll provide the write-up. But again, we don't have the actual numbers because we haven't had the bid opening. But when we have numbers, we'll put the write-up.
Okay, surplus items.
Commissioner, could I talk about item 10 first and then talk about surplus?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the golf cart bid results.
Because it makes better sense. Included in the weekly packet was an item describing the bid package that went out for replacement of 15 golf carts. This is based on an 8-year cycle to replace our golf carts on a regular basis. And the bids came back very, very well. Easy Go bid a total of $62,985 and also gave us the highest credit on traded for $23,250 for a lump sum bid of $39,735. Couple thousand under the budgeted amount of $42,500. So we're very pleased about that. Is there any questions regarding that?
I appreciate the reference to the lease, but we haven't gone through that exercise in a couple of years, so next year can you go through the lease exercise?
Sure.
Just to make sure it's still valid. I'm relatively sure it is, but it's good to refresh that.
Yes, we will.
We talked about this at the golf committee, and we recommend that we go with this.
Okay.
Now we're back to
surplus because to trade in the golf carts, we need the surplus ordinance approved.
I love the flow. This is great.
And in addition to that, we will be adding in a 2008 truck that has turned into a lemon for us, and we have a repair price of $14,000, so we're scrapping that. We're going to replace that one, but we have to go out to bid, so that's a couple of months out. And then the third is just a golf utility vehicle that will be part of that as well.
Okay, so even though we did number 10 before we did number 8, we're not going to do number 9.
No, we're not ready to propose number 9 because we can't find anything on the state bid. We're gonna have to put it out on an independent bid.
Okay, department updates. HR.
She says, proposed revisions to the Naperville Park District personnel manual were distributed for your review in last week's packet. Katie highlighted some of the recommended changes during her departmental update at the January meeting. Please direct any questions to Katie by March 4th, as the policies will be before you for approval on March 12th.
Finance?
I just have one quick announcement, and the auditors have left the building as of today. They were with us all week. Everything went very well, as it usually does for us, and so far no audit adjustments proposed. And so we'll be right on track for our schedule this year.
Take a deep breath and
Are we into a cycle for audit and legal reviews?
We will be for, I'm not sure about legal, but I can say for audit, we'll talk to the finance committee. Yeah.
Oh,
we're due for an RFP, or we can talk about contract extension, what we're going to do moving forward with Waterbach Mammon. So it's been 5 years with them.
It's been 5 years. That's what I thought.
If you prefer something other than a pizza run, just let me know.
Okay. Planning?
Yes, I actually have quite a few items.
There we go.
They're colored. Color jockeys, that's always a bad sign.
And color.
And some of these items, they came in at the last minute, so I apologize, I would have had them in the other update section. Also, we had our Parks and Rec Committee meeting on Friday, February 28th, the deadline for all our agenda items. So I figured now is a great time to discuss all the items that I had to share with the group this evening. The first item we discussed with the Parks and Rec Committee on last Friday, on February 20th. We do this every year. This is part of the capital policy. As staff, work in collaboration with the Parks and Recreation Committee, we look at the positioning of projects within the 10-year capital plan, and we identify some new projects. Some of these came from working with Kevin in the Parks Department. And the first one on the list is the Bailey Hobson Woods Park Sidewalk Development around north side of Retention Basin. And just to help with the discussion, because this one's a little tricky, I put the aerial image of the project site on the back of this sheet. And it's in color, and you can see where the existing sidewalk runs through Bailey Hobson Woods. The problem is there's a bridge there and it crosses where the water drains down into the kind of the swale and behind the homes. That's problematic. And the recommendation from the Parks Department is to realign that sidewalk on the other side. And so that'd be something we would engineer and design next year in 2016. If we could build it next year, great. We don't even know how much it costs yet. So again, these are just initial ideas, and this would be one that we would ask to add to the 10-year capital plan and add for design and possibly development in 2016.
So you're talking about on the left side of this area,
yes,
where the X's close that off and then run it south and north.
Correct. And so then, and that's a great point. And so then the trail doesn't cross right over where that water drains through after a large storm event. We bypass that whole problem.
But it appears on the what is that, south side? I don't know which way is north.
North is
North is up.
North is up right in the corner.
Okay. So on the east side of Hudson Mill Drive, there does not appear to be a sidewalk.
No, it does not connect. In fact, that sidewalk stops somewhere in the turf. It just is.
Sidewalk to nowhere. There's a lot of people standing on it.
Yeah.
So that, but the sidewalk on the south side of the pond is there?
You can barely see it, and then it just stops.
It doesn't connect
It
either.
stops short of the sidewalk on the street, so we don't know why that continued all the way on. But one other critical piece of
But
it.
then we've got, who's the users of it, both on the north and the south side of the park? Are the users of that sidewalk?
Which sidewalk are you referring to?
Well, either the current one or the proposed one.
Well, the proposed one would allow crossing the street and have a throughway through the park and the trail all the way over to Hobson Mill Drive. Because currently now they have to walk through turf grass to get to the existing one.
We could route this new sidewalk, you're saying, to the road.
Right.
Next out the
Makes
other.
sense.
And the other key here too is this is simply a concrete slab that goes over the existing dam. At the time it was built, I assume it was okay. Now it presents a fall hazard over one side, and since it acts as part of the dam, we cannot put a railing up to entrap the debris that's coming, or the water that comes down in the rain events. So it's the right thing.
Is that, I'm not sure that, what sort of use that gets, is that?
Very little.
And I just wonder whether you put a limestone pathway in there rather than a concrete walkway. Would you be better off cheaper?
Was the rest of it concrete?
It's concrete on the east end because of flooding issues that would always, if some of you may remember, that would totally wash out. All that gravel would carry through the stream. Department of Public Works would help us to remove it.
Yeah.
We're still removing some residue in the pond itself from all those actions over the years.
The existing path that you have through here that you're not gonna touch, what's that made out of?
That is just a mix of mulch and stone.
So why don't you just do
And we
wood
can do
chips?
the same, we can do the same then around the north side, right?
Mulch and stone for us, you know, on a downward slope there is more problematic
Oh, I see.
with rain and everything else.
Okay.
Do you have a ballpark figure what this might cost?
I don't know.
It's,
Do you have an estimate?
Well, the city and their bids are, I think they're seeing new concrete sidewalk come in at about $6 a square foot. You figure a 5-foot wide sidewalk, and we see the distance here, so 180, let's say 200 times 5 is 1,000 times 6,000. With everything all said and done, probably no more than $10,000.
Well, I hate to throw a further farm in. We're touching a trail. We have to make it all compliant then? We're touching it?
Well, I mean, and that's a good
Wood
point.
chip isn't gonna carry this.
So that's a good point. So the new little linkage will be ADA compliant and will have the proper slopes, but the rest of this would have to be done as part of a later project or.
Yeah, I don't think you can touch it and not fix it.
Part of an ADA transition plan.
Yeah.
Well, to Commissioner Murray's point, I mean, if you take limestone from the concrete to here, the crushing stay better than mulch or whatever that's washing away. But I don't think you can leave mulch and wood if you're gonna touch it. I haven't researched it, but that's my
You have
issue.
to have a plan in place and then you would do the rest of it.
Yeah,
It's gotta be
right.
part of your transition
Yep.
plan and you have to be able to justify why you're postponing that portion.
Yep.
Should we just take the bridge out? Instead of,
But then it's a trail to nowhere.
well, it's been a trail to nowhere.
Well, you're.
Isn't there a song to that?
Yeah.
I'm on the trails and nowhere.
You know, another
North
thing is
to
too, is
Alaska.
we can come up with some concepts, and this, this is the first step, is to talk about it. The next step is to present it at our annual open house, which will be in August, and we can inform the residents of this, we have them come out, gather some public input, to kind of see where we're at with it, and then go back to the drawing board as far as costs and implementation schedule, yeah.
Oh, it can also be used a lot more if it goes all the way through from one street.
Oh,
to
sure,
the
let's
other.
take a little jogging track.
That means it goes from Hudson Mill Drive to Hudson Mill Drive.
Who wouldn't wanna do that?
It doesn't go nowhere, it goes where you started.
But
Yeah,
but you're in a different place.
Yeah. Glad you brought this up, because I think this is a good one for review.
Okay, and then now we have about another 15 to go.
Yeah. So what, you want us to stop at?
No, yeah, I'm not gonna go through all these, you can just, kinda scan through this. Next is like Huntington Estates Park Playground Equipment. That's an easy one, working with the School District 203, we have an existing IGA in place, the equipment's in, time, past its life cycle, time to be replaced, so we would replace it next year. Seegers, another Parks Department request, there's a south side bridge and culvert. Our vehicles drive over it, it's starting to break down, as well as our patrons utilize it. We need to make renovations of that. And then the Riverwalk Park. This is interesting, the part of the the restrooms along the Riverwalk, at the warming shelter in various areas, that the park district is responsible to maintain and make capital improvements for ADA accessibility. We need to make improvements to those restrooms, so we plan on doing that next year in 2016. And then some existing projects that you all know about that's been on our 10-year plan for many years. We're proposing based on current conditions of the assets like bridges, to shift those out. They don't need to be done right away. Kendall Park's a good example. The cow path, working with the city and the CDBG grant program. We've worked with the city, but that could be shifted out. As we all know, the Riverwalk Eatery renovation discussed earlier, that's been shifted up to 2015. A portion of that, Veterans Park Detention Basin. This is with the city, shifting from 2016 to 2017. Veterans Park site improvements, this is a part of an initiative that came up several years ago, shifting from 2016 to 2017 to 2018 to 2019. And then Walnut Ridge Park basketball court renovation, shifting 2016 to 2021 because it just doesn't need it for its life cycle. It can easily make it to 2021. And then lastly on the bottom is just something to think about when we do our next community interest and opinion survey, is to maybe pose a question on there about Nike Sports Complex platform test courts, which we discussed earlier, just to see if there's an interest in the community for an amenity like that.
So I just got a call the other day from a woman who just relocated here, that was asking where's the closest, paddle tennis. And we have one. And I said, well, Hinsdale probably would be the closest for you, or Glen Ellen. And she says, very nicely, she said, I'd like to get a group together to discuss this further. I knew you had a group talked about it. I said, sure. So
This, the items that are shifting are to free up the funds for the new capital items on the above part of the page. Why the reason for the shifts?
The reason for the shift is based on the current condition of the assets. They can go out further. So we're not going to renovate something if it doesn't need to be renovated. And so that's the funding allocation, reallocation. No, I mean, yes, this is a lot of money, but in the whole scheme of things, of our 10-year capital plan, it's not because of that. It's because we're being diligent and checking on these assets before we make the renovations and finding that they really don't need to be done. So let's save the money or use it for something else. These other items are just things that came up throughout the year that we thought were a good idea to present to the board for consideration.
The Huntington State Park playground, the area around Ann Reed is all native and natural areas along the way. Is there some possibilities to continue with that natural areas in the park itself? Not in the bottom of the flood.
Yeah, you're speaking about the park that's still owned by School District 203?
No, is the whole park owned by?
Yeah, because what we own is further west, where the drainage area goes.
Yeah, so that whole Ann Reed site is owned by the School District 203, and there's just a little section to the north where we were able to salvage they helped us. They built a new basketball court and a playground area, and we're responsible to replace the site furnishing, in this case play equipment and basketball hoops. That's really all our responsibilities on that site. Now further to the north and west, there's Huntington, it's Common, there's other sites in there, but I think that there's a lot of woodland.
Parkway over to the east side too, or the north side, I guess it is. Yeah. I just wondered, since they've District 203's got a good natural area around the building there itself, whether there's some possibilities that you might be better off going with natural areas in the park itself.
Yeah, that's mostly that. Yeah, that's. I think that's probably a park maintenance question.
You could theme the playground.
Recreation.
Oh, hold on.
Sorry, we're too late.
So this year we'll go into update into the 10-year capital plan. We'll have our open house. Also, we'll have our tour, our trolley tour we have every year, and so we'll plan accordingly. Next, every year as we look at planning-related projects, there's a couple of projects that we identified that they're kind of housekeeping. They've been in the queue for a long time. We had a chance recently to sit down with the city attorney, Pat Ward, and Dirk, and Aileen and I, talk about some other projects, and we brought up a couple projects that have been hanging out there. One going all the way back to 2006 at Pioneer Park, when the city of Naperville was widening the Washington Street. There was a land and water conservation grant, and part of that, we can't sell the land or allow another government agency to build on it. So we basically have to do what they call conversion. So they can take the land, but then at the same time, they have to give us replacement land. And I don't know if you remember, there's the Citgo parcel down by 75th in Washington. And so, and actually, Amy made these really nice exhibits. But this kind of shows the area in question of that parcel. I know it comes up to the edge of the river. That would be the conversion, but we never had a formal ordinance approved by the Park District in the city for that. It's like a conveyance. And so we're going to present that to you at the March 12th meeting. So that's the first part, so it's housekeeping. The other item was Huntington Commons. This is up on Chicago Avenue, east of Pembroke Park, which you may know about. And there's a portion there to the north of Huntington Commons. Again, it was never conveyed to the district. I mean, we own it, but the ordinance and all the documentation was never done. We talked to Pat Ward. We'll get ordinances through and get these approved. All this one will probably also go to the March 12th meeting. As you're looking at those maps, I'll just keep moving along. Trails, segment 5, trail that's supposed to be built in collaboration with the Forest Preserve District of Will County. They received federal funding. It's being administered through IDOT. They informed us that there's a delay in the review process and for the phase 1 engineering, so they can't move on to phase 2. With that being said, we were hoping construction to start in the segment 5 trail at Naperville Park that runs through Rivercrest Estates and then connects to the 95th Street Bridge. That's probably going to start now in like 2016, so it probably will not be done until summer, fall of 2016. Also, the Forest Preserve District of Will County is working on a countywide bikeway plan.
The last one, is that synchronized with what the grant application that we're trying for the interpretive signage?
No.
Is that along that trail there? So.
No, this is the new segment 5. This is totally separate to the ComEd Green Grant that Sue was here to discuss. That was just for interpretive signage. That was existing trails, not this new trail. Okay. And also it was for the woodland, invasive removal and planting new plant material. Okay, so then moving on, the Forest Preserve District Will County is working on a countywide bikeway plan. It's great. They sent us a notice. They asked us, to check on data, things like that. So we're going to assist them in that process, just like they helped us in our trail master plan. Just so you know, that's going on. Next, a couple things as far as we talk about contracts being approved. The Fort Hill Activity Center. We had a bid opening a couple weeks ago on the bid group 1. We also have many packages, as I mentioned. We have well over 30 packages of trade construction work. That first bid group, we had a very good opening, but at the same time, what it looks like we're probably about $430,000 over budget. But however, we are carrying for construction, as we know we need to have contingency because you never know what's in the ground. Based on percentage, about $1 million for the contingency. So, but at the same time, do we want to utilize all that? But at the same time, we don't know where we're going to end up. We still have to open up big groups number 2 and big group number 3.
You're officially out of hands.
I know.
I need Brad over here. Brad. So, just trying to put all this together.
What's group 1 in dollars?
Big group 1. I don't have that. It's $21 million the construction phase, and it's 60%. So I'm okay. A little over 12 million. So the remaining portion is about $8 million. So I mean, we could easily make up that $400,000 deficit, or not. So we're letting you know that. And what we're probably going to do too, there's some items that we identified along the way that are safety related, life cycle enhancement, things that make sense, logic, cost benefit analysis, that we're probably going to make a list of. Once we know the exact cost and the bid opening of big groups 2 and 3, we're going to present that to you. But I want to make sure of the initial earthwork packages, the steel packages, the infrastructure, those are all good packages. We need to get the project rolling forward. So So contracts for those packages will be presented to the board for approval on March 12th. We get the ball rolling. Just like at the Knowles Nature Center, you approve multiple packages over a couple of months. So this is the same process that we utilize for that project, but I want to give you an update on that so there's no surprises as we work through the process. We'll work together on this and then we'll talk about where we're at once all the numbers come in.
We're a little bit more confident though on our borings and soil samplings.
Absolutely. Yeah, we
couldn't be less confident.
we not only did one test, we did two tests, we did a third test, and we did a fourth excavation on site. And so,
So there's no buried barns over there.
well, that's a trick question.
You know, the one thing, and just, I mean, we've talked about this now, I mean, and I told you, this has been the longest year. And today was, what, the 3 hour meeting? I don't know, it's 2 hours, 3 hours. Remember, we were 4 million over budget initially, 4 million. And we're down to 400,000, you know, on a project. One of the things that you will see coming before you, based on the footprint that we're building on, based on the number of parking spaces, based on the shifting of the building, we initially had a 9-foot drop moat that was going to have to go next to the building. I said, that's unacceptable. That's a safety hazard. And the city said, it's so bad, you're going to have to terrace it down and you're going to put railings. So I said, I don't care what it costs. This is a 50-year building. A, it's unsightly, but actually, you know, A, it's unsafe, and B, it's unsightly. So now we're going with underground storage. Take the water. So we go from a wet 9-foot lake to a 3-foot dry bottom. We had a couple of business owners in the area come and meet with us 6 months ago, begging us not to do the first one, because they had heard through the grapevine this was coming. That will probably, of that 400,000, about 100,000 of that is because of that safety issue. The question, if I were you, would be to ask me, well, did you not know this initially? You can't know it until we start designing the building. Remember, we had to shift the building in order to get the right address, and also just from the aesthetics portion of looking at the building, you had to put it in a certain area. You have to send the water somewhere. And I just think 9 feet is just big comments.
The city would allow it. And so it was a permitting issue that came up. And we looked at the long-term costs of replacing in the life cycle of all the railing. I mean, you basically have railing along the entire stretch of the property, north-south on Fort Hill Drive, and you got retaining wall. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Obviously, you're putting a large concrete vault in the parking lot area that has a structural surface. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. At the end of the day, the difference in cost is $100,000 more. But knowing that the railing and the retaining wall, the life cycle replacement as the wall breaks down and everything, it's about maybe 15 years. The structural concrete footing, because it is a structural footing, it's rated at over 30 years. So the replacement cycle, it's actually a savings period.
If I could offer something, encourage other commissioners to jump in. I fully appreciate the fact that you're looking to stick to budget. But as you go through a process like this with any building or any enterprise, every step you take, the numbers start to come into clearer focus and you start to get a better understanding of what it is. So as you face decision points about, do we stay with the original plan or do we cut it down, cheapen it down to make it fit within the budget, I would suggest you bring those options back to us.
Exactly.
And let us discuss it, because if, you know, this is a big project. There's a lot of money involved. We don't want to, I don't think we want to make decisions that are purely based on an absolute dollar amount. I think we have to look at the product that's being put out there.
We will prepare a list once we open up the second bid package, which would be almost, I think 80-90% of the total contract value. And we'll have a summary of each item and cost, and then we'll present to the board for consideration. And the way we're probably going to arrange that is that it would be in a weekly packet, so you can review it in advance. We would then discuss it at the March workshop, but then at the same time, and we'll have options. So depending on what the board decides, we'll right after that we'll be able to move into right approval contracts. So to kind of
if we build contingencies in the projects is for that particular reason. So that's what the money is there for. So that would be, in my mind, our first source, rather than start shifting things around elsewhere, scrambling with the finances in order to not touch the contingency. The contingency is what it's there for unplanned, unforeseen types of things. So,
and the whole philosophy behind it is that you do have contingency, and as we all know, what's in the ground is usually what's very difficult because it's unforeseen. You can do all the testing, so like once you get past that point, you have a good, healthy contingency left over. There could be more options through discussion with the board. We can pull a trigger on that, are related to the patron experience, enhancing the project. So we'll make sure to keep those options in mind, present those to the board, and we have that discussion. So that, along with, as we talked about last year, when we received, and very fortunate to receive the park grant, we added that fourth multi-purpose room, we added some green initiatives, we added energy efficient mechanical systems, all part of things that we actually wanted from the very beginning. And so we were able to get all that in there, and so with the additional scope, it related to a change order to architectural services. We also mentioned to the board at that time there will be changes to the CM services, but we didn't want to bring it yet because in the CM contract there was that at-risk clause, and that still had to be figured out once we had the final estimate of what the project was going to be, once we got through design development. Now we're getting to the point where we have those numbers, so at the March 12th meeting we'll also be bringing to the board a CM services change order along with a GMAX for you to review and approve. But I want to let you know that's coming. That is something we discussed all along, but now is the time to do that. That's all. Oh, and lastly, I promise this is it. The last item is we've been working with the city of Naperville. Omar's been working with IT staff. One of the things we talked about is really a benefit to the new activity center is how are we going to handle our data connection? Are we going to do wireless? As you may already know, the city of Naperville, a lot of their connections has a fiber optic system, and they have it at the public works facilities just to the south of the activity center. We're working with them and getting costs laid out. So like running the fiber optics, the capital investment for running from the public works to the new activity center, it's about $100,000, and they have a breakdown for that. And then it would also be somehow getting a connection from the city municipal center at 400 South Eagle Street to our admin center, and then from our admin to the activity center we have a direct connection. And so we don't have to worry about when we have issues with the wireless connection, like there's registration at the activity center and oh, it doesn't work, it's dropped. We're not going to have that problem because we're going to have a hardwired system, a lot of what the city has. But a lot of municipalities, or I should say other private agencies, they don't have that opportunity to work with the city and have that to run that line. And because the city already has infrastructure in place, and they've done this, I think maybe with North Central College. So they have a template, working with Pat Lord and Dirk. We're starting to review an IGA, but we plan on also bringing that to the board for consideration at the March 12th meeting. So that's it.
That's it. You're sure.
Has the Citgo property been tested recently?
I believe it's tested part of the when the city had the property, when they acquired the land to make sure it was clean. As you probably know, there's that whole restoration and cleanup of that Citgo property. So we'll confirm this. I think it received, like we work on Sportsman's, a clean bill of health called NFR letter. We'll make sure there's an NFR letter in place for that.
I used to work there. There was a lot of gas spilled.
That's a good one. Recreation.
Yeah, I promise.
I have two items. One, we're getting ready to release RFPs for food trucks. This is something that we discussed earlier, actually bringing in food trucks that would then be approved through the Park District to serve at our sports complexes throughout the community, as well as tie into our special events. So when we have Frontier Kite Fly Festival, Halloween Happening, even concerts in the parks, we can work with those food truck vendors to then actually come to those facilities for that. As part of the RFP, what we've been working with internally is what is that right dollar amount to charge to those vendors that would come out. Right now we're thinking that it would be $1,000 per year for a food truck to then have access to all of those different sports facilities, to be able to work with tournaments and so on, to have that. But wanted to put that to the board tonight for any discussion and thoughts on that before we move forward.
So it's a $1,000 permit fee, but then we'll get 10% of the sales?
No, there would not be then anything based off of commissions. That's very difficult to end up tracking and then collecting and so on. We've moved actually to a similar type fee for the preferred caterer program, where preferred caterers get, they pay $500 per year, and then they are the caterers that are approved for many of our facilities. It's worked out well. It also provides the caterers with advertising for our program guide as well as a website.
Is there a licensing requirement from the city and county health?
Well, certainly through the county health department, this would be limited strictly to Park District properties, so the permitting would be through us. But we would, much like with the caterers, they would have to provide the health certificates, any other certificates that they're required to have.
Are you gonna issue an unlimited number of licenses, or are you gonna cap them?
We're targeting, right now, we're targeting 6 licenses that we would approve.
So wouldn't you be better off approaching it, letting them bid on it, taking the top 6 bidders, versus saying it's $1,000 in?
We could do that as well. We were looking to basically have a set structure that they would essentially all pay one fee, and not come back with a situation where we may have then multiple fees that can be paid to as well.
How many activities do you think that they would be then supporting for the?
Supporting? Well, certainly during our peak athletic seasons, any weekend at the major sports complexes, both Saturdays and Sundays.
So is it every weekend? Is it like 15 over the summer? Is it 100?
That would be dependent upon the food vendor and how often they're out there, but they would have then the access to be able to do that. If we had specific tournaments, specific events, we would look to schedule them to ensure that they're there. But we would certainly then encourage them to be there at the sports complex facilities.
So they could come to the sports complex any weekend that they...
Any weekend or any evening if they wanted to come to Nike and be able to have food available where they can.
Knock Park be one of them?
Knock Park would be one of the sports complexes, yes.
Okay, parking lot by the barn?
Yes, we would designate areas within each one of the parks that's where they would have to locate within the parking lot. And this is a different approach than having the concessions that we've had in the past. In the past, we contracted with Belgios with some limited success at the sports complexes. We see this as another avenue to be able to provide an option for those who are at the parks to be able to.
Well, you certainly get more variety this way, I think.
Yes.
Which is a nice...
Variety, and what we're looking for as well is more coverage.
Okay.
Ideally, there'd be a schedule so people know what's coming.
Well, that's where
We can get
Commissioner
there.
Egan's idea also helps. The more you bid on it, the more you're going to be out there. So a floor bid or a bidding process, so it's a minimum, like whatever,
Minimum amount.
minimum amount, and then we take the highest 6 bidders. If I spend $2,000 a month, I'm going to be out there on weekends trying to make back my money. So.
If there was a minimum amount set.
And we're going to have to put together a schedule anyway. For the people are going to ask, what am I going to get for my $1,000? Well, here are the parking spaces, and here are the tournaments we have as rentals. So we can't control all of that at a time. But and then the calendar is the calendar, and we expect you to be in service from here to here, and you won't be eligible